Wubba lubba dub dub! Welcome to this week's episode of the Nerd Eye Council.
What up, bitches? We're back. We're back again. We are minus Wreck-It Ralph.
Yeah, but the important people are here,
That's
so.
right.
Ooh, I'm important.
Joining us in Wreck-It Ralph's place is. What do you go by now?
Redhead leader.
Redhead leader now? He graduated.
I
Graduated from Darth Ginger to Redhead leader.
I got like 6 of them. I'll bring you the next one next week.
This week we are going to be talking about.
We're going to talk some Batman. There's some Batman news to talk about. Then we'll get right into it, and then we're going to talk Star Wars, because we haven't done that in like a month, and I'm going through withdrawals. We've kind of been so, Comic-Con happened, and we've been so kind of immersed in the new news of the Marvel Universe that Star Wars has kind of taken a back seat, but it's time. But first of all, we're going to talk Batman today, because some Batman news came out, and I have to say, fellas, I think it's all my fault. I was telling Ralph this, because Ralph doesn't know anything. I'm his channel feed. I'm all his information. What's going on in the universe? So I told Ralph about the Batman news, which is...
Yes, if you haven't heard already, all the rumors about Ben Affleck not doing Batman anymore have finally been put to rest. For he has signed a new contract, basically signing on to Matt Reeves' the Batman trilogy, and yes,
That's a big and.
A big and. The Batman Beyond adaptation to follow after the trilogy, thus confirming that they are going to be working on Batman Beyond.
That's some big news. That is
Yes.
Really. I mean, there's some we get blown away by so many. Every day it seems like there's new news coming out in the superhero world. But they're doing Batman Beyond. We don't know when. It could be 10 years from now.
Right.
Because I think they're going to focus on this trilogy first, the Matt Reeves, the Batman trilogy. And then they're going to take Batman down a totally different path. I mean, we've seen it before, but in animated form. But I'll be the first one to admit, I used to hate Batman Beyond. The animated show, when it came out, I was like, blasphemy! What the fuck is this? How could, and I was a little more narrow-minded back then, but how could anybody be Batman other than Bruce Wayne?
That kind of threw me off too, because the way he flies around and everything, kind of like an Iron Man bat suit.
Yeah, I agree. I was like a teenager when that shit came out, and I was like, no cape? What are you fucking talking about? I still don't like the fact that he doesn't have a cape. And that'll, in future podcast episodes, as that movie becomes, I don't know, we don't know if it's a movie or if it's a trilogy, because really, I mean, that's a whole nother universe that you're opening up. You could make several more movies. It doesn't really sound like it's a standalone film. But I will be doing more bitching about the lack of a cape as that movie becomes more of a reality, because Batman needs a fucking cape. It's just one of those things. Like when we see Superman come back, if all the speculation is true that Superman's going to be donning the black suit that does not have a cape, I want to see it, but it'll look really fucking weird. To me, it'll look weird not seeing a cape on Superman. I really don't care what color his suit is, but without a cape, the cape's important, man.
Well, he may not have the cape, but chances are he's going to have the beard.
Yeah, and the black suit. Yes. I'm kind of interested, because I was thinking about this whole Batman Beyond thing, and it brought me to the Superman. And I was thinking, I wonder if they're going to put a cape on Superman. Because technically, we're talking Justice League info here. The rumor is that he's not dead. He's coming back, or he's going to come back to life, or however the fuck.
Yeah, however.
Whatever the science is behind it.
Yeah, however they're going to do it in this film.
He is in this film. We know that. He's in the cast. he's in this movie. In what form, Superman that is, in the Justice League movie, we don't know yet.
And what role, too.
Right.
We don't know.
A lot of people are saying he's going to, if you go back to, what comic was it? The Death of Superman? Or Superman Returns? I think it was like a 2-part. I think there was The Death of Superman, and then there was like a 4-part The Return of Superman.
I think so, yeah.
And in The Return of Superman, back in the mid-90s, whenever this was, he had a mullet. I don't think we'll see the mullet. I really don't. But that would be badass if they had him with a mullet. That would be a huge homage to the comic book. But he had a mullet, he had a black suit, and his powers were diminished. Therefore, he couldn't fly. He could only jump really high or for long periods of time, like the original Superman. Once that used to be the original Superman powers.
Going back to Smallville.
Yeah. If you're not really aware of that, Superman was a character that was not created to fly, but in the opening theme song, it tells you.
Can leap tall buildings in a single bound.
Right. And so he originally just could jump really fucking long and high. And then eventually somebody was like, fuck it, why don't we just put a cape on him and make him fly?
And they actually had that in The Man of Steel. When the Kryptonians first came to Earth.
You're right.
They just jumped really high.
Right. And they explained it in the movie too, I think, didn't they? Something about the sun's powers.
I think it was either the sun's powers or I think Krypton's gravity was stronger than on Earth too.
Right. That's how they explained that the Kryptonians didn't fly around Krypton.
Right.
Because their atmosphere was different. But anyways, without getting way off board with on a different tangent about that.
Already so early.
Yeah, I know, right? So yeah, you'll be hearing more bitching about Jeremy's indifference to the Batman Beyond series. I'm really torn about that series. It's a brilliant idea. It really is. Old man, when his body cannot do it anymore. We're talking 70-year-old Bruce Wayne. He finally reluctantly puts down the cowl, but he will not give up fighting crime. So he recruits a young police officer, which I have no idea what that character's name is. Do you remember? He was a police officer.
I can't.
Well, not in cartoon.
Wasn't he?
No, he was a high school kid. Terry McGinnis.
Terry McGinnis. He was a high schooler?
Yeah, he was like a high schooler.
Oh, I thought he was like a young detective or something.
Well, actually, if you go through what the cartoon says, that he was actually a clone.
Never seen a single Batman Beyond cartoon. I will admit that.
Yeah. It ends up coming later.
Yeah.
On toward the end of the series.
That he was a Bruce
Wayne clone
so
created by Amanda Waller.
Mm-hmm.
By Cadmus. Because by Cadmus, Amanda Waller.
Oh.
The black chick from Suicide Squad. She creates Terry because Bruce is getting older and Gotham still needs a protector when he's not able to do it anymore. So
against Batman's,
I can't remember.
I don't believe it was against Batman's. I know that I want to say that Bruce knew about it, but never told Terry.
That would probably.
So how did you find out in the cartoon then? Use a conversation between Amanda Waller and Bruce Wayne?
It was a conversation between all three of them when Terry was doing some investigating. Terry, being older, obviously, than when he started, kind of started getting the more of Bruce Wayne's physique.
Yeah, because I think
started getting bigger, started catching on to all of Bruce Wayne's little detective mannerisms and everything like that, started becoming Bruce Wayne physically.
And I think this was sometime down the road, too. I think it said like 5 or 10 years after the previous episode, where I think it showed him like breaking into a house or something he was investigating, and he finds out that he was a product of Cadmus, that Bruce Wayne, he was basically a clone of him, and then Amanda Waller explains why she did it and everything.
If I'm not mistaken, he actually gets into Amanda Waller's house. That's the house that he.
Okay, yeah. I think you're right.
So this brings up something interesting because I didn't know there was an Amanda Waller connection.
Oh yeah.
So there's Suicide Squad 2 is coming.
Yeah.
Will there be a mention of Terry McGinnis? Did I say that right?
Yeah.
You think?
I don't think not this early.
Too early.
Yeah.
I think because Matt Reeves hasn't even started the trilogy yet, and to do it this soon.
And I mean, you don't.
They could say something. She could say something about I'm starting up a new cloning program or something. It's possible. That's what I'm saying.
I could see
could
like
there be
a possibility
an Easter egg of some sort.
I could see a possibility of a start.
Well, if
like a file
maybe
with the Batman Beyond logo on it or something,
or could be in the upcoming trilogy if they go the Marvel route, which they probably won't. But they could have subtle hints in one of the trilogies in regards to Terry McGinnis. So I mean,
you mean like
they're not going to have his name already there, but they could make subtle things about a cloning or saying Bruce is getting older. We need to think about the future or something.
Yeah,
you know.
And it is a possibility because you got to think she also did clone a Superboy.
Right. Yeah, she did.
So,
she's hell bent on the whole cloning thing.
So let's talk about this before we kind of dive into hardcore Batman talk. We'll start with some Batman talk. So like I was saying, hinting at, it's all my fault. Because last week on the podcast I said, quote unquote, I want Ben Affleck gone. And I think I summoned someone's pen and a contract when I said that.
Some guys just
It was literally like 3 days later and Nate was like, guess what? I'm like, what? So I guess Ben Affleck's not going anywhere. And I was like, why do you say that? Well, he's just signed on to do like 3 to 6 movies. Which is something we'll talk about also, about how much money they're paying Batboy to be Batboy. Because that's a big fucking contract. You don't hear about that very often.
So you know Batman ain't gonna die anytime soon.
Right, Batman is going to continue on.
Ralph, you are safe.
But I will say this, and I shat all over Mr. Affleck last week. I will say this.
Now get on your knees.
Right. I'm sorry, Mr. Batman. You're gonna be Batman for a while. Don't hate me. I will say this about the Batman Beyond story. Like I said, I'm very conflicted about it. I never really liked the idea when I was younger. As I got older, I kind of thought, like, it's actually a pretty damn good idea for a story. I don't necessarily agree with the directions that they went, but for the Batman Beyond story, I think Ben Affleck is perfect for that part. Because I did say something about this last week. I thought he was a really great Bruce Wayne. And an older Bruce Wayne. I think he plays a good older Bruce Wayne. So now picture Affleck with like silver hair. Maybe even a beard. Right? Maybe he doesn't even have silver hair. Maybe they go the Logan look. I don't know. But we're talking about much older Bruce Wayne who can't do it anymore. But he's a hardened crime fighter. He's still got that, that gristle about him. Affleck's perfect for that part. Of the mentor to a youngster, that I see perfectly. If that makes sense to me. When you said that, I was like, no shit. Batman Beyond. And I pictured Affleck in that scenario, and I'm like, yeah, I can see that, totally. As far as the Batman, we'll see. I told Nate, I guess I gotta give him a chance now. And I stand by that. I have to give him a chance. Now
we'll get our first look at Justice League here coming up. That's going to be our first.
Yeah, it's a
post Batman v Superman. Batman's turning the corner.
Yeah,
we'll see him.
Yeah. Good point. And I think, and that bears repeating, Nate. Probably a good. The timing is perfect. Because I was not looking forward to going into the Justice League movie not knowing if he's my Batman.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And especially with the whole the news that the Flash movie is going to be Flashpoint.
Right.
You know, like, are they going to use Flashpoint to reset certain characters?
Right. That's what it seemed like.
Right.
Now that seems a little less plausible, except at least in the Batman department.
Right, as far as Batman's concerned.
So, I mean, I guess, like, I was thinking about it the other night, like, I'm kind of glad I can kind of take my mind off of Batman when I go into Justice League.
Right.
You know what I mean? That was, like, a weird experience that I was not really looking forward to. I'm excited about the movie. I'm still mixed about Batfleck. So I kind of would have went into that movie like, oh, I can't wait to see this movie. But I wonder what he's going to look like as Batman. Because I've seen him in 2 different movies as Batman. I don't know. So now that we have squashed all that bullshit, and he is our Batman for at least the next 10 years. At least.
Right.
Probably longer than that, but at least the next 10 years.
Unless something happens and there's an early buyout in the contract, because we don't know any details about the contract.
That's true.
There could be an early buyout in case shit hits the fan and it's like, you know what, screw this. Just pay me $75 million for the remaining of the contract.
If he bombs as Batman.
Well, that too.
Yeah. Because the whole world really is not sure about it. I hear all this...
Unless you're Robert Downey Jr.
I hear a lot of like, oh, Batman... I mean, it kind of blows my mind when I see this on the internet. I know it's the internet, but he's done one, not even in a half movie. It was like a guest spot on Suicide Squad. And Wonder Woman, that doesn't really count.
No, because he wasn't even in it.
So he's done one movie as Batman, and the movie wasn't even about Batman.
Right.
And I hear this shit about he's the best Batman ever, and I just rolling my eyes like, really?
I wouldn't say the best ever, but
you don't have a lot of evidence.
Let's pump the brakes on that a little bit.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot, bro. Like, come on. I know there are probably younger guys that don't know the real Batman.
Those poor souls.
Those poor youngsters. But even, like, my kid's 14, and he grew up on The Dark Knight, Nolan's trilogy. I'm going to have to ask him when I see him this weekend.
Has he watched?
Bale, I'm going to have to ask him. I haven't outright... Yeah, he's seen Batman vs. Superman, and he kind of...
No. I mean, has he seen 89 Batman Returns?
Yes.
And he still likes the Christian Bale one?
He likes Christian Bale.
What the fuck is wrong with your kid, dude? I mean, Christian Bale it was alright, but I mean, nothing can hold a candle to Michael Keaton.
I hear ya, dude. It's a generational thing.
It is.
It is. That's why it's like, I don't think he even agreed. I forced him to sit down. My young boy was like, oh, what's this? He saw the Batman 1989. And I said, we're going to watch it. This is Dad's favorite Batman movie. And Finn's like, wait, what is this one? And so I'm like, explaining, hey, when your dad was 11 years old, this is the Batman. And I'm like, this is Batman. And I start going into my rant, and he's like, all right, it's going to be pretty hard. Immediately, pretty hard to top Christian Bale. And I was like, no, not really, actually. It's been watered down. You think he's the best because that's all you've had. It's kind of like somebody gives you a Hamm's beer and you're like, hey, this ain't bad, until somebody gives you a Lightning Kugel and you're like, ooh, you spit the Hamm's out and I will never drink that shit ever again. It's weird using my son with beer terminology, but so we watched it, and dude, to me that movie still holds up. It still holds up to me. At least the first one. I watched the second one not too long ago, and it's a little weird. The Catwoman, but I still enjoy it. But the first one, love it. Love Batman 1989. Love it. And about halfway through the movie, I said to my boy, I'm like, so what do you think? What do you think about him as Batman? And he goes, I don't know.
That's when you slapped him off the couch. Get out of here!
And I was like, no, what? Really? Because I expect, usually, dude, he's right on course with whatever I like, he likes. Right down to music and everything. And I'm like, what? Explain. He's like, well, he doesn't really look like Batman. And I was like, fucking Batman is in a suit. What do you mean he doesn't? oh, okay, well, I mean, he doesn't look like Bruce Wayne. And I'm like, okay, a little he doesn't, I guess. He's got the Jufro hair. The hair is not your typical slick back Bruce Wayne hair. But other than that, you have a comic book version of Bruce Wayne leading up to the 1989 Batman. So then I was like, do you mean Christian Bale looks more like Bruce Wayne to you? And he's like, yeah, that's what I meant. So that was a little telling to me, like, okay, I got it.
Has he seen like the other ones? Has he seen the Val Kilmer one?
No.
And he's like, okay, does that look like Bruce Wayne to you?
He saw the one, he was pretty young, Batman and Robin.
The Clooney one?
Yeah.
George Clooney.
And this was, I think he had seen The Dark Knight, maybe just earlier that year or something.
Okay.
And then he saw this, and he was like, what the fuck? Even at like 5, 6 years old, maybe he was 7, he was like, this is nuts. And I was like, yes, agreed.
It's time to freeze.
Right. This Batman movie sucks monkey balls. And I will never make you watch it ever again.
I'm sorry.
I just wanted you to see how bad it could be. And I do remember giving him the whole spiel about how I swore off Batman movies after I did. I went and saw Batman and Robin at the theater, and I almost fucking walked out. Amazing to me that I sat there for 2 hours and watched that fucking movie. And I remember getting up and going, well, they killed Batman. They killed my hero. I will never... I mean, at that point, I thought they were going to continue to make Clooney movies. And I was like, I will never, ever watch another Batman movie. And I held that pretty true, guys, until I remember watching on TV this is kind of a little before trailers, the first Nolan movie.
Batman Begins?
Batman Begins. I remember seeing I was sitting there on the couch with my kid and my ex, and it came on television commercial, and I was like, the first 10 seconds of the commercial, I didn't know it was a Batman movie. That's how different that movie was.
Oh, right.
And the Nolan version of Batman. And then when I saw it was Batman, I'm like, oh, wow. They're doing Batman again. And I remember thinking, I ain't going. I will not go. No, they're not doing it. They're not suckering me into it. I was that pissed off about the George Clooney. Even to this day, I fucking loathe that movie. Loathe that. It came on TV. I bring this up all the time. It came on TV a few years ago. I was at somebody's house, and it began, and I was like, it's one of those movies that's so bad that you always want to give it another chance. There's something inside of you that's like, no, it can't be that bad.
Maybe
I was young.
Maybe it wasn't that bad.
Right.
You give it a couple
No,
years.
it's
You
that
go back.
fucking bad and
No.
more and beyond. Because I think I made it to the part, and it's near the beginning of where they're chasing Mr. Freeze, and it turns into a full-blown hockey.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and there's some, like, fucking puns about, now I put you on ice or something like that. And I'm like, this movie's terrible. And I turned it, I walked out of the room, I couldn't do it.
You know, if you should have known going into it, Arnold Schwarzenegger is Mr. Freeze, the captain of puns.
Dude, if any motherfucker read that script and still signed the dotted line, you're a sellout. You're a sellout. If I was sitting there reading the script and it says, and Arnold Schwarzenegger turns to Batman and says, now I'll put you on ice. Nope. I ain't doing this movie.
You're going to rip it in half and walk out.
It made Batman 66 look credible. That's how fucking corny that movie was. And I don't know what took us down that rabbit hole of Batman talk. What were we talking about?
Oh, we were talking about your son, like the Nolan series, and then I asked about the '89.
Right,
and
but we were talking about the movies before that. What were we talking about? Oh, we were talking about how. That's right. Okay, the millennials are all like, Batfleck's the best ever.
Right.
Shut the fuck up. Like, I'm not saying he's not. He might end up being. We might all, 10, 15 years from now, go, Jesus, he was awesome as Batman.
Okay, so now I'll pose this question. on your list of Batmans,
Where does it
how would you list the people who have played people who have played Batman? How would you compile that list? So we've got Michael Keaton.
This is a good list.
You know, we've got
I have thought
Val
about
Kilmer,
this before, Nate.
George Clooney.
I have thought about this before.
We've got Christian Bale, and I guess our little glimpse of Ben Affleck. And if you want to include Adam West on there too, we can.
Yeah, I think because personally, Adam West holds a little bit of water with me because personally, that was one of the first shows that I looked forward to watching. I'm older than you fellas. I'm not that old. It wasn't current episodes, but it was reruns on Channel 32 Fox.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And they played the shit out of that Batman for years and years and years. And it was one of the first TV shows I remember 4 o'clock, Batman comes on. It's one of the first shows I ever remember knowing what time it came on. Oh, everybody stop playing, Batman's coming on. That's how legitimate that is for me. Adam West is definitely campy, corny, jokey. It's hard to take that. I've seen it recently, and it's a joke. It's funny.
That's what I was about to say, because the only way I'd be able to see it, because I used to watch them too, but it was more comedic for me, and I would have to stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning to watch it on 32 Fox.
Yeah.
It was still on there.
Was it?
Yes. And but seeing that Batman, it was kind of like going into the show knowing I'm gonna laugh a little bit. What the fuck is he gonna pull out of his belt this time?
See, now I was young enough that he actually captivated me as a youngster, and then I got older and the reruns were still playing, and this is even before I was reading. See, I guess comics changed Batman for me. When I started reading comics, I was like, oh, he's not a fucking homo. Because some of the comics I had read, even before they got really dark with the comics, were still really good stories and shit, detective stories. My favorite Batman, just like Ralph, my favorite Batman is Detective Batman. I like the good stories. So I think, Adam West counts to me as a Batman, for sure. We'll throw Ben Affleck in there, but it's still real early.
Right. It's our initial.
So here's my list. I can give you a quick movie list too, but here's my list for who is Batman to me. Obviously goes without saying, to me, Michael Keaton is my Batman. That's my Batman. Yeah. I will say, I think it's not a close second, but it's not a huge gap either.
Between 1 and 2?
Yeah. Bale is my number 2. Christian Bale is my number 2. My number 3 is also probably a little bit sentimental, and I think you might disagree that he should count, but I think he should count as a Batman. The animated series Batman.
Oh, Kevin Conroy.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, I forgot about Kevin Conroy.
See, he's my number 3, and I would say Christian Bale and him are almost neck and neck to me as Batman. If we're counting him as a Batman, I watched the animated series religiously.
See, I would put Kevin Conroy in number 2.
Would you?
Yeah.
I almost would too.
Because his voice is so iconic, even though he hasn't physically played Batman, he's voiced Batman in some of the most iconic animated series, and in the video games too. He did the Arkham games.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, Kevin Conroy did.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he did. Actually, I think he did all of them. I think except for Origins, obviously, because that's a younger one. Mm-hmm. But I think he did them all. With the Joker, obviously, I think, except for the last one, which they had Mark Hamill, I don't think, did that one. Arkham Knight, I think.
Well, Joker's in it at the very
Well,
end.
he's in it, but I don't think Mark Hamill did his voice, though. I think somebody else did, because I think Arkham City was his last one. Mark Hamill. That was, I think, the last time he was going to voice the Joker.
I think it's kind of funny because I think Kevin Conroy, he has the voice of Batman, but he has like the look of the Joker.
Right. It's like really weird.
Mm-hmm. He's got the smile.
Looking
too.
at him, and it's like, that's Batman.
Mm-hmm.
It throws you for a loop.
It's just like,
yeah.
Hit him with some paint.
There was a video online, and I wanted to look at it. Or I wanted to show the council before the podcast. Apparently, Kevin Conroy he read one of the iconic lines or iconic speeches from the Nolan series, which is the one where what was it? Is it you live long enough to be the hero or something, or you die, or you live long enough to be the villain or something like that. That speech.
Yeah. Either you live. Yeah, I know the one.
Right. Yeah, I guess he delivered that speech as Batman.
That's
his
pretty
Batman.
Awesome. That's pretty awesome.
I was like, I really wanted to watch that.
I listened to this podcast. Shout out to Smodcast. I love all of the Kevin Smith podcasts, but there's one I listen to I don't talk about a whole lot. It's called Hollywood Babylon, and it's really entertaining. It's Kevin Smith and this other guy named Ralph Garman, who is a radio host / actor, but he's really good at voices.
Okay.
Impersonator. And I would say that's probably what he's best at. He's a fucking awesome impersonator. I mean, the dude does Pacino, Schwarzenegger. I mean, just really spot on. One of them that he does, he is friends with Adam West. Rest in peace. He's really close friends with Adam West. They actually have had Adam West on the show. And one of the cool things they do on the show is they sometimes read comic books. Like, they take character, like, they assume the identity of the characters.
Oh, that's cool.
It's a lot of fun, actually. I highly recommend it. It's Hollywood Babylon. You just have to look through the episodes. There's like 300 episodes. Kevin Smith has written a couple comic books, and they did those. They also did one with Adam West playing Batman.
Wow.
It's fucking fun to listen to. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. Because picture like a modern Batman story, and you have Adam West doing the voice of Batman, you know, like he does. It's so awesome.
Speaking of Adam West, I know everybody knows him as Batman, and some people know him as Mayor Adam West on Family Guy, and one of the I think it was.
Yeah, I mean, people out there don't even fucking know that's Batman.
No,
yeah.
And it's really
right.
It's kind of sad.
Mayor Adam
like,
West.
Mayor Adam West.
He's funny. I like him. And if you showed them Batman, they'd be like, "Whoa!" It would blow their minds. But anyway,
right? But I think it was one of the episodes. You know, I think it was like Inside Family Guy, where it's like the show was like a behind the scenes of Family Guy, like of the actual animated show, not the actual behind the scenes with like the artists and stuff like that. So it was like a spoof. Mm-hmm. But like in one of the scenes, they show Adam West in the Batman costume, in his old Batman costume, doing the whole rope, climb up on the rope.
Yeah.
But it was flat. He's like, "Huh! I bet you didn't know we did. This is how we did this." And he just kind of crawled across the screen right to the other side, and they're just like, "What?"
That's so crazy. That's so crazy to me, dude. Because I remember being a little kid watching that episode and totally buying into that. The actual Batman, when him and Robin would climb up, then they'd have whole conversations on the way up.
And then there would be like guest stars that would pop out of the windows.
Like
Sammy Davis Jr. was one of them.
Yeah. People would stick their heads out the window and be like, "Hey, Batman!" They would always be like, "Hey, it's Batman!"
Hey, what you doing out here today?
Hi there. How are you? We're just fighting crime.
Hello, good citizen.
But the reason I bring up Hollywood Babylon is because we're talking about Kevin Conroy, and they actually had Kevin Conroy on one time, and they did Kevin Smith's Batman comic that he wrote, and Kevin Conroy was voicing Batman, which was awesome. But back to the list that we were talking about.
Right, so you would have Conroy number 3.
I agree with you that it's a real close toss-up for me, too, as well, with Kevin Conroy and Christian Bale. I also love the Dark Knight movies. I do. Christian Bale, I think he gets a lot of help because the movies are so brilliant. I think a lot of people look at him like as, he was a great Batman because he was surrounded by a great cast and a great story.
The story was told really well.
And great directing, and that kind of helps his case. But I will say this in defense of Christian Bale. He played the weird, old, recluse Batman really well. Bruce Wayne, I should say.
The old beat-up Bruce Wayne.
In the beginning of Dark Knight Rises, when he
at the beginning where Catwoman's heisting him.
Yeah, and he's got that limp and
got that brace on his knee.
The porn stash that he's sporting, and he's like, no, I don't want to fight crime anymore. I thought he nailed that. Now, as far as like Bruce Wayne, most of the time, he was okay. But as far as creepy, recluse Bruce Wayne, near the end of his crime-fighting career, I thought he nailed that. So I'll give him props for that, and I think, that helps his case on my selection. But I will say, bro, I love the animated series. Love it. Just fucking love it. You want to talk about great Batman stories.
There are a lot.
Those people that put that cartoon together. I don't know how familiar you are with animated series, but if you're not, dude, do yourself a favor and go watch it. It's fucking awesome.
Circa 94?
I would say I was in high school at the time. Dude, I used to tell my friends, I don't want to hang out on Batman's on. I'm not kidding you.
Yeah, it was like maybe
92?
Early mid-90s.
92 to 97, maybe.
I say it did run for a while.
Yeah, they did a lot of episodes because they did it every day. Mm-hmm. It was every day. Again, on Fox, wasn't it?
I think it was Fox, yeah.
I don't think it was Channel 32 Fox anymore, but it was Fox still at that point.
I watch it every morning.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
I used to watch it after school. It would be on after school, and a lot of times people would be like, hey, Payne, we're going to do this, and I'd be like, I can't till like 5. Mm-hmm. Why? Batman, man. I watch Batman every day. What? I took a lot of shit for that. It was before the era that we are now living in of comic book and superheroes. And,
right.
It was like, we're going to get laid or we're going to get high. What are you fucking talking about? You're going to watch Batman. But anyways, my list probably goes real close, second and third. Christian Bale.
Kevin Conroy.
And then
this is where we get to Death Valley here, because it's like
into the abyss.
You're like number 4, Val Kilmer, George Clooney.
So number 1, Keaton. Number 2, Bale. 3, Conroy. I guess because of nostalgia reasons, I'm going to throw Adam West in number 4.
Adam West, okay.
For me, because of, like I said, nostalgic reasons, I don't think he was the best Batman. But he played Batman in a different way. You know what I mean? You have to give him props a little bit. I really didn't like Val Kilmer. I really didn't.
No?
No. I hated George Clooney, though. George Clooney is at the bottom of the list. So I guess it goes...
Val Kilmer would then be... So then be Val Kilmer, then George Clooney.
Part of the reason I hated Val Kilmer so much was Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey didn't help. Jim Carrey didn't help Val Kilmer. I hated Jim Carrey's rendition of the Riddler.
But see, wouldn't that be reminiscent of the script, though? The way it was script.
It was trash.
Because I could see him as a legitimate Riddler.
When they said he was going to be Riddler, I said, yes, perfect. It was one of those castings that I thought that was perfect. But then it just goes to show you, it don't matter how perfect the casting is. You're right. If the story sucks ass, if you got a script where because that's all that movie was one-liners, zingers. Everybody had zing, and they just kept it going with Batman and Robin.
And that's Joel Schumacher, wasn't it?
Yeah. Fuck that.
That fucking
him,
asshole just ruined it. And regardless, if it was written right, it would have been Michael Keaton still.
It was written right.
If the script was good, Michael Keaton would have still been on board.
Yeah,
Val Kilmer would have been an afterthought.
If you guys don't know the backstory of the previous movies, so I'm old school. I know a lot about Batman '89 and all that. So, Michael Keaton did Batman 1989. Then he did
Batman
Returns with Danny DeVito as the Penguin.
Right.
Catwoman. What's her name? Michelle Pfeiffer.
Right. Christopher Walken.
I can't forget Christopher Walken. I loved him in that movie. I really did. He should have had a bigger part, if you ask me. That movie was out there. It was different, and you could see Burton was starting to become the Burton we know today.
He's starting to be too much Burton.
He had gotten a little money and power under his belt and was like, "Fuck, I'm gonna do what I want." And Batman Returns turned out good, but weird.
Right.
It's a very weird Batman story, which I'm okay with, because there's some weird Batman stories out there. Batman's a weird character, really. So what had happened was Batman Returns was not the success that Batman 1989 was. It made money, but the studio was probably started putting a little more heat on Burton about, hey, we actually want you to do this with Batman in the next movie. So Burton, who now had a couple of big movies under his belt because he was doing other stuff too. I think Edward Scissorhands, said, "Fuck you! I don't need this shit. I'll go make the movies I want to make." So he told them, I think he was originally signed on to do 3 movies. He told them, "Fuck you! I'm not doing the 3rd one." And broke his contract, I remember somehow. And Keaton, who had mad respect for him, said, "Well, if you're not going to be here, I'm not going to be here." So Michael Keaton walked because Tim Burton walked.
Well, okay. Well,
actually,
I would say
he did read the script.
He read the script
of Batman
from the new director, Joel Schumacher.
Forever.
Right, and he looked at it and he's like, I think he literally said, "This script is garbage." And he folded up and then he quit.
Yeah.
So then he took off, so that they had to fill the role, and that's where Val Kilmer came in. And the rest, as they say, is history.
And I actually like Val Kilmer in a lot of different movies. I grew up to Top Gun era. We loved Top Gun, me and my friends, my cousins back in that day. You guys even seen Top Gun?
Yeah.
All right, okay, all right. You're all looking at me weird.
No.
There's a bit of an age difference, so I have to ask.
Not that much of an age difference.
The Iceman.
Goose.
And yeah, dude, that's a great movie. And I loved him as the Iceman, even though he was a prick. But I loved him as Tombstone, Doc Holliday. Oh my God, he's fucking awesome in that movie. And Batman Forever killed Val Kilmer for me. Really, because I was excited. It was another one that was like Jim Carrey playing the Riddler. Oh, I can't have Michael Keaton, Val Kilmer. Okay, fuck. If I have to replace Batman, that sounds like a
Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah, Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face. He was big back then. Tommy Lee Jones was huge back then.
I thought he played a really good Two-Face. I thought.
Wasn't there another? There was a chick. Oh. Nicole Kidman was in it. Nicole Kidman was in it.
Oh, she played the Dr.
Yes, another person he told his fucking identity to.
Dr. Chase Meridian.
Good call.
Boom!
Good call. I'll tell you guys a real short but funny Batman Forever story. So I can give you a pretty precise date. 95 is when that movie came out because I was a junior in high school. And I had this car I had bought for $50 from this dude that was my lineman on my football team. And it went down just like this. I was in science class, didn't have a car. My car had gotten a hit or whatever and was without a car for like 6 months. Dude sat in front of me, turns around and he goes, "Peng, you want to buy my car?" And I was like, "That piece of shit that you drive, that Plymouth Horizon?" You guys remember what the old Plymouth Horizons look like? Remember when they, early 80s, when they made hatchbacks?
Okay.
Little 4-banger hatchbacks. Every car company had one. I guess Ford maybe was the Escort.
I think the Escort
was a hatchback.
I think
in
so.
The early '80s. Chevy had something, and then Dodge had, or Plymouth had the Horizon.
Okay.
So it was just this little 4-banger hatchback. You'd be lucky if you could fit 4 people in it. But it was a stick shift.
Okay.
And he said, yeah, man, it ain't that bad of a car. And I said, dude, that's a piece of shit. I said, how much? He said, Payne, for you, I'll sell it to you for $50, man. I was like, $50 for real? I said, does it run? Like, if I went to go get it today. He's like, fuck yeah. He's like, it's got radiator problems. Like, it does have a radiator leak, but you can fix that, no problem, man. Fuck $50. So I was like, you talked me into it, man. I gave him $50 in science class. He handed me over the keys at the end of the day. It was my car. So, it had some radiator issues. Oh boy, did it have some radiator. Let me tell you, there was a fucking hole in the radiator the size of a baseball.
Jesus.
So I could not take that car 5 miles without carrying 2 gallons of water with me.
Jeez.
So Batman Forever, I remember this like vividly. Batman Forever was coming out that summer, like June or July. I think it was end of June. I was dating this girl that was like first love of my life. She was like a year younger than me or something, and her brother was my good friend. And I said, hey, everybody get in my car. We're going to see Batman Forever. I'm so psyched. And there my girlfriend was like, all right, date night. So my buddy had told me, Payne, just make sure you carry water around with you, right? And I had driven it around Three Oaks. Like I said, you took that thing 3-4 miles, you had to pull over and put water in it.
Jesus.
So I had 4 gallons filled with water in my hatchback. And I'm like going from New Troy to Niles.
Oh, Jesus.
Not that far, really. Fucking took us like an hour and a half to get to the movie theater, dude.
Pull over, refill.
Yeah, like every 10 minutes or so I had to pull over and put like almost 2 gallons. I mean, it was bad. I mean, my girlfriend was like hiding from traffic, going by. Oh God, I think that was my friend that just saw me as I'm out there. But yeah, that was my Batman Forever. We got there. I think we were pretty late when we got there, but
Then she probably turns to you and says, was it worth it? This piece of shit.
Yeah, she was not impressed. Neither was I. I think the point of the end of the movie, towards the end of the movie, is when he tells, and it has nothing to do with the plot. He tells her his identity, and it has jack shit to do with the plot. He's just so dying to tell anybody.
He's just like, oh, and by the way, I'm Batman.
She like walks into the Batcave, which I remember thinking, okay, so now we've had 2 bitches in the Batcave already? 3 movies, 2 bitches in the Batcave.
You want to see me in my suit?
The world's greatest detective.
And remember, he wore
2 fucking blonde bimbos just stumble upon the
Hey, you want
Batcave.
to see my Batcave, my alter identity? Remember, he had those weird. Val Kilmer was wearing the weird little like, I'm actually smart round spectacles in the movie.
Yeah, I think I vaguely forget
that scene. He's sitting in the Batcave and he's like, I have something I have to tell you. And he takes his glasses off, and I was like, no. I remember in the theater going, no, you don't. You have nothing to tell her. Put your glasses back on.
You son of a bitch.
You're Bruce Wayne, you son of a bitch.
He's like, I think Alfred's the Riddler.
Right. Well, he just drops the bomb. He's like, I'm Batman. And she's like, what? And I remember going, what the fuck? Seriously, we had only had 3 Batman movies ever. And in 2 out of the 3, he's telling bitches that he slept with the night before. Yeah, I'm Batman, by the way.
Yeah, how you like that?
Jesus. They both kind of had the same reaction, like, oh.
You're like, oh, yeah.
You're already in her pants. What else you got to prove?
Remember the whole...
You're Bruce fucking Wayne.
Right.
Like, you needed in.
Right.
You're multi-billionaire. You own your own company.
Remember the scene in Batman 89 where he gets drunk with Vicky Vale? Their date.
Right.
You know, they have the dinner at the long table.
Oh, yeah.
And then she's like, do you like eating here? And he's like, no. Actually, I've never ate in this room before. Blah, blah, blah. So then Next scene, they show you they're drunk. And you're like, oh, Batman's getting some pussy, he's getting her drunk. And he gets her drunk, dude, and he basically carries her up the stairs. And they stop at one point, and he, like, sets her down on the stairs. And he says, hey, and he gets serious. And at first, when I was watching that movie at 10 years old, I was like, don't you dare. Don't you dare tell her who you are. They wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that. And he doesn't tell her, but there's this moment where he kind of looks like he's going to tell her.
Right.
And then he doesn't. And then later on in the movie, he tells her anyway.
You son of a bitch.
Well, he brings her to the Batcave. And then you're like, what the fuck is he doing that for? But then he does some fucking Batman spell or something. I don't know. They never... Remember he put
Batman Neuralizer just...
He did something to her, and she forgot all about it.
I can't remember.
She forgot about the Batcave, but she remembered she had film in her bra. Remember?
Oh, yeah.
She's like, what happened to me? Oh, no. Like, wait a minute. You can't remember you were in the fucking Batcave.
But you remember that.
You don't remember the Batmobile flying at like 200 miles an hour almost into a fucking stone wall. You don't remember none of that, but you remember you took some cool pictures. Anyways.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, those movies had potential.
Well, Christian Bale also kind of did the same thing and told... What was her name?
Did he tell Catwoman?
No, not Catwoman. We're talking...
Talia?
No.
We're
talking...
Maggie.
His childhood friend.
Oh,
he did
yeah.
He did.
Because
he told her at the beginning of Batman.
No, he wanted to.
He wanted to. What he did was she told him, gave him some sort of quote. I can't remember what it was, but as Bruce, she made some comment to Bruce, and then when Batman saves her, she makes a comment to him, and then he repeats that comment back to her, and she goes, Bruce, and then he jumps off. He jumps off the rails. And that's when she knew, oh shit, Bruce is Batman. With Christian Bale.
And then she wrote that letter where she was gonna break up with Harvey?
She was going to be with Bruce.
I remember
as long as there was no Batman.
Oh, okay.
Remember, there was two different Maggies. Not Maggie. What's her name?
The actress's name was Maggie Gyllenhaal, but
right,
yes.
But the first was Katie Holmes. At the end of it's the same chick, same character, different actress. You got to go all the way to Batman Begins. Katie Holmes is in Batman Begins,
and she played the character.
And she plays that same character.
And then the second one was Maggie Gyllenhaal. Then
right, same character, different actress.
Oh.
It's a little bit of a mindfuck.
Yeah, it is, actually.
The only thing I really remember about Katie Holmes from Batman Begins is she gives him some sort of speech when he was going to shoot that guy. I mean, before he's ever Batman, he's still
after the League of Assassins or something. No.
When he was
this is
shoot
before
the guy in the trial.
Right.
And she gives him some because she's a cop or a detective. Or a lawyer. She's a lawyer. Then she gives him some speech about the law, let justice, and that kind of like plays upon his mind. They make it seem like that's part of the reason why he throws the gun into the water. Like he's remembering what. Anyways, the only thing I really remember about Katie Holmes is the end when the fucking Wayne Manor burns down. Remember at the end, Wayne Manor burns down to the ground.
That's right.
And they're like standing there in the rubble.
Yeah, because Roz torched it.
Yeah.
I remember that, yeah.
And she gives him some fucking speech about... But I was trying to think, did she know he was Batman at that point? When Wayne Manor burns down and they're standing there talking to each other, does she know he's Batman? This is my next question. Does Ben Affleck tell anybody he's Batman?
I think we're going to have to wait until the Batman, because I don't think he's going to tell anybody. They're going to be too busy.
There was no... Batman vs. Superman, does he tell anybody?
I didn't watch it, so yeah.
You haven't seen it?
No.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I just pulled up the quote that she told him.
Oh, okay.
It's... now it's loading. Okay. The technical difficulties. Okay. Okay. It's right here. All right. It's not who you are underneath. It's what you do that defines you.
Oh yeah.
And that's the quote that she tells Bruce, and the quote that Batman.
Yeah, because he's got bitches on both arms. I remember that scene now. He's got bitches on both arms. This is in the second movie. This is in Dark Knight, right? The Dark Knight?
This is... Yes, The Dark...
Yeah.
The Dark Knight was the second movie.
The second one. And then The Dark Knight Rises was the third one. And then Batman
He shows up to the gala event with two bitches, and she's like...
He's like, look at these sluts.
She makes some sarcastic, like, oh, you piece of shit. And he's like, hey.
I'm Bruce Wayne.
Well, he says,
I'm rich, bitch.
He says it's not what you see or whatever. It's your work that defines you.
Mm-hmm.
And so... And then later on, they have a scene where she kind of figures that shit out. Yeah. But she's dead. That's all right. That's okay.
She didn't tell nobody.
Right. If you die, you know about it, you die, that don't matter. It X's itself out. It never happened. It never happened. But for some reason, Vicky Vale knows his secret identity, and she's still alive. And she's not
never tells anybody.
She's a fucking reporter. That's her job.
Right. She never tells anybody between the first one and the second one, because nobody knows that he's Batman, and nobody knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman in the second one.
And in all the comics, she's in comic books too. Still to this day, Vicky Vale is in comic books.
They even had on this past season of Gotham, they had a relative of Valerie Vale.
That's right. Yeah.
They had Valerie Vale on as a reporter.
Yeah, because I remember asking you, what the fuck, is that her daughter, or? But it was her cousin.
It was like her cousin or something. It just sniffing around with.
But I have serious problems with that whole shit. Like, let's not even go into that. Like, that seriously fucking bothers me. Of why, like, every movie he feels the need to tell somebody. Like, you made it 75 years without saying a fucking word to anybody.
But wouldn't you have the urge, if you're this badass superhero, you fight crime at night?
Yeah, sure.
You know, you're gonna have that urge to tell somebody.
And I think that I'm fine with that human element to it, because I think Batman '89 played it perfectly until he spilled the beans. Remember when he wants to tell her right before the Joker shows up at her apartment, and he's like, and he's like rehearsing it to himself in the mirror, and that's funny. Okay. That's like, it makes for a good laugh, but you don't give up your ace in the hole. You just don't. And I see it. It's actually a problem all over the place in superhero movies nowadays. You've noticed? Nobody's secret identity is a secret anymore.
That is true.
Nobody. Nobody, dude. Nobody.
And I think it's as blatant as Iron Man. The first Iron Man. Right at the end, he's just like, fuck it.
I'm Iron Man.
Fuck it.
He can't, because, and again, like, it's Tony Stark. He's got a huge ego.
Right.
And you're right. That would be something like, God, I'm just dying to tell somebody that I do this. But it's a code that the comic books lived by for 70 plus years. And now that we're doing movies, nobody's identity is safe.
I think the only one that comes close to that would be Spider-Man.
Yeah, but
I think that
comes
the closest.
Know who he is?
Well, I mean, as far as... Well, of course the Avengers know who he is.
Why do they need to know he's Peter Parker?
Well, they need to know who's underneath the fucking mask.
But why? Why do they need to know? They need to know who Spider-Man is. And we need Spider-Man's help. Somebody go get Spider-Man. Tony Stark's got a relationship with Peter Parker. It could be Tony Stark's secret.
They never... You know what? Now that I think about it, they never really explained how...
They played upon it in Homecoming.
No. Before this, Civil War, how Tony Stark even knew that was... Because remember, there's a scene where he just shows up at Aunt May's apartment, and he's just chatting with her and everything. He knows who he is.
Yeah. Probably because nobody keeps a secret identity anymore.
No,
but Spider-Man
This is before he became on the mainstream.
Well,
he had those YouTube videos where he was in that homemade costume.
Well, right.
And he's swinging around and everything. Next thing you know, Tony Stark is sitting in your living room hitting on your aunt.
I guess.
And going to recruit you. But he never really explained, Friday tracked you down an advanced algorithm or something.
Social media.
Well, I mean, you got to think.
There's no hiding shit on social media.
Yeah, that's true.
Tony Stark's like a high-tech genius. If he can't find you through the interweb...
But here's a little bit of weirdness. All right, we're talking about the secret identity stuff. They actually, you're right. It's weird that Tony Stark just fucking knows who he is. Like, I saw this kid on YouTube. He's Peter Parker. He's Spider-Man. They don't really explain it. But then, after Civil War, Homecoming, his identity is a big deal. Remember, the friend wants to tell people, and he's like, no.
Yeah.
It's kind of an oxymoron. It's kind of a contradiction. I guess I was just thinking about this when you said YouTube, in this day and age of where, like, all the superheroes, their secret identity is just out there. It kind of goes hand in hand with, like, the day and age we live in, right? Your privacy is out there. It's social media. It's the internet. Your shit's out there. You can't really hide nothing anymore.
Right, and it's almost gotten to the point where if you, let's say you wake up the next day and you got spider powers or some shit. Obviously, where we're at, it really wouldn't do you any good. But
hey, I could get to work a lot quicker.
Just slingshot that.
The bicycling problem would be over.
But
I just hit that window behind the fuel desk. I'm here!
Oh my gosh! But it's in a day and age where if you suddenly drop off the face of the planet as far as social media goes, that's going to be a red flag. Because okay, why is he dropping off now? What has he got to hide? And then people are going to start looking and going into this life. So now you have to post something. Or you have to be active in social media in order to deflect unwanted attention now. Right. I mean, that's the kind of the day and the age that we live in now.
Yeah, I mean, you guys seriously, you don't think it's odd? I mean, this is a big deal to me. This is one, every time I watch a superhero movie and I go, why? Why do we got to do this?
Well, let's see. Everybody knows Steve Rogers is Captain America.
Let's just point out why, before we go through the list.
Right.
Let's just point out why. Why do they have a secret identity? Well, I mean, if people have a hard time understanding, there is a real purpose for it. Because you're doing things secretively. You don't want you have enemies. You don't want your enemies using your personal shit against you.
Right.
I mean, that was basically why we were always told.
There was that, and then there's also to avoid the law.
Mm-hmm. Right.
More in the case of Batman, because they don't want it to trace it back to Bruce Wayne, and you got cops crawling over Wayne Manor,
right,
and all this stuff.
And I guess maybe not in the Batman world that doesn't apply, but in the Marvel universe, they found a loophole for that because the superheroes are in coercion with the law now. So instead of hiding your identity from the law, you work hand in hand with the law, and the law is supposed to protect your identity. They don't really fucking do that either.
Well,
I guess they don't go around blaring it, but
no, they don't. But everybody knows that Steve Rogers is Captain America.
Yep.
Everybody
knows.
Steve Rogers, he gets frozen late World War II, and then all of a sudden he pops up in 2012?
Right.
Right. After all that, maybe Black Widow really doesn't hide. She doesn't really try to hide her identity.
And she's a fucking spy.
And she's a spy.
That's what I'm saying.
But she doesn't wear a mask. She doesn't wear armor or whatever. She's more in the spy game. Maybe
Natalia. What's her real name?
Natasha Romanoff.
Natasha. See, I couldn't even tell you her real name.
Right. So I know a lot of her life is either classified or it's not easily accessible. So
that's a little different.
Yeah, so that's really different because there's really nothing to go back on. She was part of the Russian spy program.
Right.
So that just kind of puts her off to the side.
But think about
Bruce Banner.
Yeah, all these. Well, I mean, most of these superheroes have family. Most of them. Bruce Banner, I don't know if he does. I don't know.
Well, they haven't introduced.
But you don't want
She-Hulk. I can't think of.
You don't want the bad guy knowing who you're related to.
And that.
It's just a general rule 101.
Well, they hammered that big time in Spider-Man the Animated Series. Because he was very secretive. I mean, eventually he let Mary Jane Watson know who he really was. You know?
I had problems with that shit in the movie too.
But
the scene where he kissed her in the alley, I fucking hated that scene.
Right, but then as soon as somebody made the connection that she knows who Spider-Man is,
they grabbed her.
They targeted her.
Right.
Dr. Octopus, right. Green Goblin, they all went after her and said, hey, Spider-Man.
It almost fucked him up because there was a point where he was like, I have to save her or I have to save City. Remember there was some...
Right. It was in the first movie.
They did the
Spider-Man
same thing with
movie.
Aunt May.
Green Goblin, he had the trolley, and then he had, on the other hand, he had Mary Jane Watson. He's like, who are you going to save, Spider-Man?
Yeah.
And he drops them both.
Right.
So, and then he flies down and grabs her, and then he grabs the other one. He's like, he lays him down on the barge or something.
So it makes me wonder, did they do that again with Aunt May? Are they going to do that again with Aunt May?
Oh, at the end of Homecoming, because she figured out, what the...
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Well,
it's going to be interesting to see what she does next.
Mm-hmm.
Because she figured it out at the end of Homecoming, like the very, very last scene, and then they cut to the credits.
Right.
So we don't know what happens afterwards.
Right.
Now, maybe they'll expand upon that in Infinity War?
We still don't know.
Maybe?
We still don't know
little
about
bit?
Uncle Ben. We don't even know.
Well, we'll see. But Uncle Ben's... I think they did away with that.
Spider-Man. Uncle Ben was before, or like right when he became Spider-Man.
Yeah,
we'd already leaped a little forward.
Right, they didn't do the whole. They didn't do the whole Uncle Ben thing because it's one of those things where it's part of his origin story. We all know how he kind of great power, great responsibility, blah blah blah. We all know that stuff already.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they'll make reference to it,
makes me
like
wonder
maybe Aunt May will bring up what would Uncle Ben think, or something like that.
Well, this is another thing too. In like right at the end of Homecoming, we see him in his Spider-Man suit, and Aunt May's behind him in the doorway, and she's like, "What the fuck?" And so they kind of hint at, "Hey, Aunt May found out," or is he just going to be like, "No, don't freak out. I got this suit off eBay. I'm not Spider-Man."
He can play it off.
Yeah.
So they left a little wiggle room, at least for us to be like,
it seems to me,
he got caught.
It seems to me like whatever the bitch is with a one word name, Zendaya, whatever the.
Zendaya.
It seems to me she's the next to know. Don't you kind of get that feeling like?
But if it turns out to be true, and I guess it actually has confirmed that she's not actually Mary Jane Watson. I guess they haven't introduced Mary Jane Watson yet.
Right.
No.
So
because at the end, once we got near the end of the movie, she goes, "My friends call me MJ."
Right, but then the director came out and said, "It's a mislead." He's like, "She's not Mary Jane Watson. She just happens to be,"
which is weird.
Mary Jane or MJ.
That's a really weird mislead.
And I think he made it. There's there's a Mary Jones. There's a a lot of stuff. Where
I'm just saying, going by the movie itself, that character seems to be the one that's kind of like, I'm watching you. Like I got my son. Something's not going on. Something's wrong.
I don't know where they're going with that character.
I don't either. But it seems like
a throwaway character. Like, unless you're either Felicia Harding or you're Mary Jane Watson or you're Emma Stone's character. Shit. Gwen Stacy. Get the fuck off the screen.
I hear you, but then again, the best friend who I loved, he's not an original character.
Right, but I mean, if
and look what they did to Flash. That still is kind of fucked up.
In what?
Not the Flash.
Oh, Flash Thompson.
Yeah. So who knows where they're going?
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, that shit bothers me. I'll just leave it at that. That shit bothers me. I don't understand.
I think
it's a crucial part of superheroes, like for good reason. You don't want the enemy using shit against you. I think
Black Panther's identity is really not really out there. Really,
not out there.
Not really.
But isn't he like my dad's the king?
I mean, to his village.
Yeah.
They know about the Black Panther.
But do they know it's him? I guess we'll find out in February.
Well, they knew what his father was, and the legend of the Black Panther is passed down in the family, if I'm correct on that. And obviously, since his father died in Civil War, spoilers, he then takes up the Black Panther mantle, mainly for revenge. Right. I mean, let's not sugarcoat it. He put it on so he wanted to fucking murder people.
Right.
But outside of his village, well, I mean, at the end, he did kind of take his helmet off when they were all captured. And they were like, "Oh, it's the prince," or whatever.
He did.
I forgot about that scene.
Did.
But I mean, outside of that,
I forgot about that.
The general public doesn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, until WikiLeaks hacks S.H.I.E.L.D. servers and releases it to everybody.
Wouldn't that be weird if they brought WikiLeaks into this? Anyways, I think it's generational, man. I think it applies to the audience they're trying to make these movies for, which are millennials and young people who don't... Dude, think about it. I mean, it makes me feel old when I say this, but... Those kids don't have any privacy. Does not exist to a 20-year-old because I was just talking to Ralph about this because I was just watching a video about this. It had something to do with it wasn't a superhero video, but it was about like this generation of kids that are growing up with the internet in their hands and social media. Their whole life is being documented. Like, they get an iPhone when they're 8 years old, and they start posting Snapchat and Instagram pictures, and when they're 40 years old, they're going to be able to look back. Isn't that weird? Like, we have old photographs that our grandparents kept of us when we were little.
Yeah, our memories are in photo albums.
Yeah, they're just for
physical.
The whole world to see.
Right.
Their whole life is being documented day by day. So, man, I guess
these guys got like Facebook documenting their life, and my life was documented by Polaroid.
Right. And Grandma Watson.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's just probably this generation just doesn't like secrets. They just don't, man. They're like, no, everybody should know who that Black Panther dude is. Why is he a secret? Why is he keeping a secret?
Right. I mean, if you see somebody in a Black Panther outfit running down the side of the road,
know who that guy is.
You're going to be filming that shit.
Yeah.
Right.
You're going to get in your car and you're going to follow.
Right.
And you're documenting.
It's the Google generation, dude. They're growing up with no mysteries.
And Google and YouTube.
Yeah.
Anything that happens, a spaceship lands in your front yard, you're going to videotape that and
it's immediately
you're going to put that on YouTube.
Yeah.
And it's going to get like 50 million views, and then of course the Men in Black are going to come in and take you away because you didn't see this.
The world, and to quote the Vulture / Batman, the world's changing, boys. I guess we got to change.
We got to change with it.
We got to change with it. And on that note, we'll get off the fucking secret because I could rant for 2 hours about it. I don't know what we were talking about.
What about? Okay, so yeah, we'll get back because we were listing the Batmans in order. Okay, so
who's your favorite Batman?
Ridley.
My favorite Batman is Michael Keaton. It was the first ever Batman movie I'd ever seen. And
all right, well, let's just.
And you know what?
We won't throw you out now.
But my number 2 is Christian Bale, just like you. There was only one issue I had with Christian Bale. I thought I liked his backstory, the way they played everything out. Unlike the way they started him out, completely different than they started out any other Batman that we've seen. But there was one thing that it always like irked me just a little bit. Every fucking time he would speak, he had that something with his S. Something with his S.
You talking about Bruce Wayne or Batman?
No, I'm talking about Batman.
When Batman.
The way he would, It is something about the way he speaks. It's almost like Batman has a speech impediment almost.
Hey, you right. What is that matter?
Well, no, it's not. It's not how low he talks. It's every time he says.
Does he draw
something with his S's?
Is it like the drawn out S? Like
no, it's like across the street.
You're right. He purses his lips.
Yeah, the way he says something with his S's is almost like he almost duck faces the camera. Almost.
That's just because he's so mad. That's his angry face.
It's something so
it
little,
like
but
duck
it always
lips when he's angry.
It was something so little, but it always pissed me off just a little bit.
Maybe Batman invented the duck clips. You know how the chicks do the duck clips now? They got it. She's like, okay, selfie. Picture Batman right now. I love you.
But my number 3, and don't shun me for this, but my number 3 would probably be Val Kilmer.
Oh my God!
Just because, like I said, I grew up with him. That's right. I grew up with it.
And I'll say this in your defense: he wasn't a bad Bruce Wayne. He wasn't a bad Bruce Wayne.
But what really pissed me off, like what kind of threw me off, and I didn't really think about it until I got a little bit older, is they sat there, we're gonna fucking blow this place up, or Batman can come out and say, hey, here I am. And, he tried, and next thing you know, fucking Dick's parents die, and then Dick finds out that Bruce Wayne, the guy he's living with, is Batman. And it never hit me till I was older that Dick never sat there and went, why the fuck didn't you save my parents? You son of a bitch.
What do you mean?
Like, he could have, at that point, he could have sat there like, why didn't you fucking come out and be like, hey, I'm fucking Batman?
I'm trying to remember how his parents died in the movie.
Because they were the fucking trapeze artists.
Well, that's the comic book story.
And they were fucking...
in the
movie, in Batman Forever.
But the original comic book story of Dick Grayson, Robin, his parents were the Flying Graysons.
Right.
And he was a part of the show.
Right.
He was one of the Flying Graysons, and Batman was there.
Well,
Batman was at a circus.
In this movie,
I think in the comic book he was too. I don't know why he would be at a circus.
He was there for reasons I can't remember. But
it was a really slow night. I just check out the circus when there's nothing else going on.
Now everyone is freaking out, but this motherfucker stands up and yells as loud as he can, I'm Batman! You're telling me that none of the dozens of people around him sat there, were just sitting there like not hearing what the fuck he was saying?
I'm trying to remember the movie.
Because you would sit there and be like, he says he's right here!
Does he say it in the movie?
He's right here. Yes.
He does.
He yelled it in the middle of the fucking crowd.
And where I fall in this category, I was probably in the theater going, fuck you, motherfucker, shut your mouth!
You whore!
You whore! Telling everybody!
But it wasn't until I got older where I sat there, I was like, I would kind of think that Dick would be a little pissed off because his parents died because he would think that he never admitted to being Batman that day.
I see your point. That's how forgettable those movies are to me. Yeah. Like, I can't even remember the plot.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've even seen that movie. I can't.
But
that scene is vaguely familiar, but I can't remember how it goes down.
Who was trying to get him to say his identity?
It was Two-Face.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't remember that scene. But I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's a bitch move.
Yeah.
I would, as Robin,
instead
like,
of being like, dude, you're the fucking Batman, dude. Let me come with you, dude.
As long
Let
as
me
we're
come
talking
with you.
about
Yeah.
this and we are deep into Batman talk and we're talking about Robin, this is one of my gripes. This comes from The Dark Knight Rises, which I love that movie, but there's a few holes. There's a huge black hole, gaping holes in that movie. One of which, and I've said this for years, and I don't think I've ever said it on this podcast, so it's time. How the fuck? Alright, let me paint the scene for you. Remember, he's not returned as Batman yet, and in walks Joseph Gordon-Levitt,
Okay.
the young cop. And he says, I'm here to see Bruce Wayne. Alfred's like, oh, okay, sure, just lets him in. Already going, I'm already scratching my head. Like, why wouldn't Alfred be like, Master Bruce, are you busy? You know, no, just come on in, he's right upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
So he comes up there, and he fucking immediately knows you're Batman. And this is how he knows.
Well,
I was an orphan too. I know that look. What? So you're telling me every time Batman ever saw a fucking orphan his whole life, that orphan was like, oh shit, that's Batman. How do you know that, Jimmy? Oh, look at his face. I know that look.
Look at that fucking
I
face.
have that look. Only orphans with secret identities have that look.
only detective orphans.
What
okay?
the fuck? And I love Christopher Nolan, but there are some points in that movie, and that is the biggest in the whole trilogy, the biggest what the fuck moment. And he doesn't even try to go, you're crazy, kid.
Yeah, it doesn't even
looks at him
deny it. Like,
fuck. You got me. He doesn't say a fucking word.
Right, like he might as well
He
just
could have been like-
throwing his hands up in the thing. Oh, you fucking caught me.
Like, that's really impressive. Like, say something.
He couldn't have
Don't
been
just
like-
sit there like, huh.
He couldn't have been like,
God damn it, Alfred!
with this knee brace and this cane, I'm definitely Batman.
Right.
You got me.
Right, something sarcastic, like, yeah, I really look like Batman. I'm out there fighting crime. You know, look at this old body of mine. You could have done anything to deflect that shit.
Let me
But
go get my Batwalker.
If the only, oh my god, I'm on such a tirade right now. If
like
the only proof this kid has is a fucking facial expression, I'm thinking you can talk him out of that. I'm thinking, you're Bruce Wayne, you're pretty savvy, you know, you're Batman. Can't you say anything to deflect this motherfucker's thoughts about you being Batman?
It was almost,
anything.
It was almost like he was at the point where he's just like, I don't fucking care
I
anymore.
don't care anymore.
You know, you just put a big marquee that says "Home of Batman" just right on the front.
Right, a big
And
old
like,
bat symbol.
Fuck you guys!
An arrow flashing.
Right.
Here he is. Here he is.
with he's got like spotlights and it's just the bat signal just going all over the
Waving
place.
all over the sky around the Wayne Manor. Yeah, that shit always bothered me. And I love that movie. I love both of those actors. And that's actually, considering, and I've heard Kevin Smith talk about this too, considering that scene, it's pretty well acted. It is. Actually, you almost believe it. The next scene happens and you're kind of like, oh, wow, that was intense. And you just carry on with the movie. You don't really question it. Which is a kind of a credit to the acting performance. Because really, that's a bullshit scene. That's what that is. That's an absolute bullshit scene. His whole life, this is ultra important to him. Alfred, my identity is everything. We can't let anyone know. Understood, Mr. Wayne. I'm here to see Bruce Wayne. He's upstairs.
Taking off his bat boots. He'll be right down.
Yeah. Would you like to go meet him in the Batcave for brunch?
See, that's where Alfred could really become like a dick.
Right.
Like, somebody's here to see him. Oh, yeah, he's in the Batcave. Just go to there, go downstairs and to the right.
Hit these
Apparently, everybody knows where it is.
Yeah. Pull the third left on or third book on the second shelf, and the world will open up to you.
Hit these keys on the piano. The bookshelf will open right up.
Right. Even you could have had Batman in that scene staring him down like, and not say a fucking word, which he pretty much didn't. And then when Alfred's showing him to the door, he does show him to the door. And there's a little scene. And I thought for a moment, oh, Alfred's got his back. Like, there's the perfect moment where Alfred could have been like, oh, you don't really think that, do you? Like, I've known him my whole life. He's the furthest thing from Batman.
Nope!
Right. And then make the kid walk out going, well, maybe I'm wrong. There you go. Done deal. You still threw it out there like, oh, maybe this kid knows. If Nolan was trying to make this link together between these two characters, like, oh, they have this special bond. Okay, done deal. But he doesn't have to know the identity. Fucking that scene bothers me big time, dude. I just watched that movie like last year, and that scene just irks my brain.
And then it's exacerbated even further when toward the end he's like, oh, yeah, people call me Robin.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, that was the other.
That's not a coincidence. That's a big fuck you.
Yeah.
Big middle finger to everybody. And then he goes and finds the quote-unquote the second Bat Cave or some cave for whatever reason.
And it ends.
And then it ends there.
Yeah.
And then we get Ben Affleck.
That's right. Back to Ben. So, something we were kind of talking about with this episode of Batman Heavy Talk. What is your favorite Batman story? Man, I know I have a bunch. I wrote down a bunch. I just kind of sprang this on everybody today. So I will go through what I wrote down because I have a few things to talk about. Favorite Batman story of all time actually comes from the animated series. And I've read a lot of Batman comics. I have a lot of my favorites, and I'll mention them here, but there was an episode, and it was the first time I had read one comic book with Mr. Freeze in it, but I had never really explored that character too much. One day I'm watching Batman the Animated Series, and the episode comes on. It's called Heart of Ice. Did you guys ever see this episode?
That does sound familiar.
It's fucking brilliant. It's told almost completely from the perspective of Mr. Freeze. And it basically tells you the origin story of Mr. Freeze.
Okay,
About his wife. And it's for a cartoon being played after school. Dude, it's heavy. I mean, tears flow. This dude's crying about his wife that he loves so much. And she's gone, and, and how could... He's basically like, he's crying. Like, they show him crying, he's like, he's basically saying, like, how could life take her from me? Like, life is so cruel, and I don't want to go on in life anymore. And basically, this whole origin story of Mr. Freeze unfolds, and you feel completely sympathetic to this character. At the end, Batman's trying to stop him. I don't remember what the big plan was. I think it was his freeze ray, I think, was the first time
I think so, yeah.
And he's freezing people or something, and Batman has to stop him.
Right.
And he goes into this long speech when Batman and him finally, meet up about his wife and about how nothing in life is fair. And, dude, I'm telling you, for 10 seconds, you're like, fuck you, Batman, go home. Leave this guy alone. It's that, I don't know. I've never read a Batman story where I was just so swayed over to the bad guy, to his point of view, so easily and dramatically. If you've ever lost anyone in your life that meant something to you, that episode just hits home. And I think it was around the time I had lost my grandpa, was the first big loss in my life. But, so the episode called Heart of Ice, I love that story. Also... Another big Batman story I love. I talk about this one all the time. Year One.
Yep.
I
figured that was going to be on your list.
You probably figured that would come
up.
I
actually thought that was going to be number one on your list.
And it was until I remembered the Heart of Ice episode today when I was thinking about it. Year One is a great story. That's really, again, it's not really a Batman story. It's more of a Jim Gordon story. Mm-hmm. And it's a great Jim Gordon story. If you always thought Jim Gordon was boring, watch that or read that comic book. There's an animated movie too, which is great, really good. And
supposedly the next season of Gotham is going to follow that adaptation.
Right.
They're going to adapt that to Gotham. Me too.
Part of the reason I got into the Gotham TV show was because they nailed Jim Gordon very closely to the Year One story. I mean, right down to his partner. The Year One story, he's got a partner, and he's not really getting along with him at first, the partner he has, some of the earlier
Harvey.
episodes. Yeah, Harvey. They did not get along in the beginning.
Now they're buds.
Right. Yeah, check Gotham out too. We talk about that here on the podcast from time to time. Great TV show, and it looks like it's getting better and better this season. The next one I have written down is, of course, Legend, The Dark Knight Returns. The story, the comic book story, The Dark Knight Returns. Have you ever read that, Chris?
I have not.
Fantastic. Frank Miller? Pretty sure it was Frank Miller.
I think
which was also year one. Frank Miller did year one.
Right.
Basically, the story for The Dark Knight Returns is a lot of the Batman we're getting now in the cinematic universe. It's an older Batman, and he's a lot angrier. He's seen a lot of shit in his day. He's a little immune to it all, kind of, at this point. It's actually, we get the only girl Robin in this comic. There's a little redheaded girl with glasses. I do not remember. Carrie.
Okay.
Carrie something.
It does sound familiar.
And she's just like a makeshift Robin. Like, she gets kind of thrown into it. I don't really even remember her story too much. But it's Batman who contemplates killing. Doesn't do it, but he contemplates it. And I was thinking about, like, you've seen the animated story. You should watch the animated movie, dude. The animated movie.
Yeah, I watched. I watched
it's a
part
two-parter.
one. Yeah, I watched part one.
Did you?
I have part two recorded. I haven't watched it.
Alright, so I was trying to I'm trying to remember the comic today and remembering things about it that I liked, and I was like, oh shit, the talk show scene. Did you see that part, or is that part two?
I think that might be
where the Joker goes on the talk show.
That's part two.
Oh,
because they haven't. I haven't seen the Joker yet. I think the ending of the first part was he was battling this gang in the junkyard, and he got like the bat tank out, and he's like,
yeah, there's these guys that are, it's kind of set in like 1985 New York City, Gotham, but it
right?
Feels a lot like New York City. It's very 80s themed. It's very heavily influenced, and there's these guys that are like, I don't remember what they're called.
Yeah, there's like some junkyard gang. I can't remember exactly what they're...
And they wear masks and stuff.
Yeah.
They just do petty crime. They're not really anything.
I can't remember what led...
And like Batman has,
in there.
at this point in his career, in his life, he's like got no tolerance for this petty crime bullshit. Like, you know, it's one thing to have to deal with the Joker or something, but like these, you can kind of tell these guys irritate him.
Right.
And anyways... Do you care if I spoil the okay.
No, go ahead.
There's a great scene. So it is a Joker story. And there's a great scene where the Joker gets released from Arkham, and I'm trying to think about why they released him. There was some fucking bullshit reason of like they released him. I think it was just as simple as like, oh, he deserves a chance, he's just mentally ill, that kind of shit. With the proper guidance, you know, he could be a productive citizen, blah blah blah. I think it's something like that. And so they let him out of Gotham, or they let him out of Arkham, and he shows signs of like reform. Like when he gets out, he's like, he's not the Joker we know. He's acting pretty normal and shit. And the doctors are all like, see, look, you know, he's made a complete turnaround. And there's this talk show. It's kind of like Dr. Phil. It's like a nighttime talk show, but it's hosted by a psychiatrist.
Okay.
And there's an audience and everything. It looks like David Letterman.
Right.
And he has this doctor, and this host has the Joker on. And the Joker comes out. It's such a brilliant scene, dude. I remember it in the comic, and it's a great scene in the comic, and they nail it in the animated series. And the Joker comes out, and he's wearing a tux, and he's got the flower and everything, and he sits down, and he's speaking really eloquently, and this doctor is talking to him, and he's like, you were in Arkham for many years, and he says, tell us who you used to be. And the Joker, like all these talk shows, you know, they have coffee cups, and he's sitting there, and he's taking a drink, and he says, oh, I I miss that guy. And all of a sudden he starts to change a little bit. The old Joker kind of starts to come through, and the doctor goes, what do you mean by that? And he says, oh, he just really knew how to have a good time, that guy. And he says, I mean, I do too, but that guy, he was a real cut up, if you know what I mean. And the doctor's like, I don't think we do know what you mean. Why don't you tell us and the audience, what do you mean by that guy was a real cut up? And he says, well, here, let me show you. And he takes the mug and he busts it on the guy's desk and slits the guy's fucking throat right there on TV. And everybody in the crowd's like, ah! And starts screaming and shit. And he gets up and he walks over to the crowd and he like uses his flower and he squirts the venom onto
the Joker venom.
Yeah, the Joker venom onto the crowd, and you see some people's faces melting and shit. And he's like, I love a good crowd. It's such a good scene, dude. And at that point, the story takes like a real heavy Joker turn.
Right.
And it becomes all about Batman and the Joker. And just a fucking awesome Joker Batman story. And kind of like one of the last Joker Batman stories in the realm of the Batman universe, because it's one of the oldest Batman versions. And it is, I think, the oldest Joker version we've ever seen. Great story. Check it out, dude. You love the end. Like I said, it's a two-parter. It's like 3 hours long, hour and a half each or something.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Awesome. Next one I have on my list is another good Joker story, The Killing Joke.
Oh, yeah, The Killing Joke.
Written by Alan Moore. And this is the one where the Joker puts Batgirl,
Barbara Gordon in the wheelchair.
Yeah, paralyzes her. And also the Joker probably dies in the end. Spoilers. We don't, the way it's written, the last page is...
It's left up to interpretation.
Yeah, it's the lights go out and you hear crack. And it's assumed that Batman broke the Joker's neck, because right before that the Joker's taunting him, and it's just Batman and the Joker, and they're like going back and forth, and Batman's like, you know how many times I've wanted to kill you, and he's like, I wish you would. And then the next page, you turn the page and it's all black, and you just see it says crack, and it says the end, and it's kind of left up for interpretation, but it very heavily hints to he snapped his fucking neck. But we never really know.
Right.
Real good story. I also heard, I was watching a video about it today, that Alan Moore wishes he never wrote it. Alan Moore is pretty out there.
Mm-hmm.
Guy that wrote The Watchmen.
Oh.
Guy that wrote, a lot of people don't know this, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's responsible for that. And Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing was started by somebody else, and then that guy got fired, and Alan Moore took it over like early on in the first few episodes of the comic book. So Swamp Thing's kind of an Alan Moore character too. But he said he wished he'd never did it, and he said he also regrets putting Barbara Gordon in a wheelchair. Yeah.
Huh.
The next one I have, and this is kind of the end of my list. Batman Cacophony, which is it's called Cacophony. It's a 4-part series comic book written by Kevin Smith. This is the one that I reference all the time. It talks about the first night.
The first night. Okay.
Yeah, the first night Batman went out to fight crime and pissed his pants or had a bladder explosion.
Right.
Or a bladder...
Eruption.
Something like that. A bladder spasm.
Bladder spasm, that's right.
But it's a really good comic book. It really has good story. And there's this character I wanted to tell you guys about. There's a character called... They don't officially name him, but I've heard Kevin Smith say his name is Automatopoeia. And that's an actual word, and what it means is when you write out a sound. Like, pop, like think of the old Batman.
Right.
Pop, boom.
Cat, yeah.
Right, so the term for that is called Automatopoeia. Yeah. And so there's a character that Kevin Smith created, which is really fucking cool. And it only works in comic books, because I've thought about this, like, that's a weird character. You couldn't do that on TV or nothing. So it's this guy, and all he has, he's got a mask on, and all he has on the mask is a bullseye on the mask. And it's pretty, like, plain outfit and everything. He's a bad guy, he's a villain, and when he kills people, like, there's a scene where he shoots someone, and when he shoots the guy, right before he shoots him, he says, bang, and then he shoots him. And he doesn't speak, he only speaks in onomatopoeia. So like, the door will open and he'll be like, he'll walk in going creak, and it seems weird. You'd have to see the comic book. It works on paper. It really does.
Okay, so like it sounds like he's like, what's that guy's name? Michael, the guy from Police Academy.
Yeah, kinda.
He just does everything in like.
The guy that does all the sounds.
Michael something.
Yeah, that guy. I've thought about that when I was reading the comic book. Like, oh, it's kind of like that. Police Academy character. Yeah. Right. And he does that, and he's like a serial killer, and it just adds some spookiness to it. It really does. But there's also a really great scene. Yeah. Plays with your mind. You're kind of like, how would that work? But it does in a comic book. It works. And there's a really great scene in this comic book where the Joker is in a hospital bed. Batman beat him up really bad, and and Batman comes to talk to him about this other killer. Something. There's like a street drug out there, and the Joker had something to do with it. So Batman's coming to like interrogate the Joker. And Joker's like all bandaged up and he's all fucked up and he's laying in bed and he's talking to him, Batman's talking to him, and so he gets the information that he wants, and he basically says, alright, he says, hey, he tells him, he says, what is it about you and I? You know, why are you so fascinated with me? Like, he tells him, he's like, you don't really want to kill me, do you? And they just, as he's talking to him, they show Batman talking, and then the other panel is like the Joker just laying there, like listening to him and not really saying anything. Mm-hmm. And then the Joker finally speaks up because he's like, and Batman's like saying all this shit. He's like making references to like past comic books and shit,
right?
Past stories. And if you remember that time, and he's like, I almost killed you then, but I didn't, and da da da. And he's like, he's going through their history together, and he's like, so we're kind of like one and the same. You don't really want to kill me, right? And the Joker, finally the Joker speaks and says, oh yes, I do. He's like, I don't want anything else in life. I just want you dead. I want your head on a stick. I want to be there when you take your last breath. There's nothing I want more. And he goes into this like long speech. And you can kind of like, they show Batman just like becoming like sad. Like they show him and he's just like, oh, alright. And he kind of like leaves like and he says something like, I know I am going to have to kill him someday. And the way he says it, it's like, you can tell like, he doesn't want to do it. Mm-hmm. And it's a really great scene in the comic book, which kind of adds to the whole comic book. I also wrote down another great Batman story is A Death in the Family, which is the one where Robin is killed by the Joker. One of the first graphic novels.
Okay.
I'm talking like 1990, 91. Mm-hmm. They actually, this was when they killed. It's the one that Ralph thinks...
Jason Todd?
Yeah, Jason Todd. Because they introduced Jason Todd into the comic books, and, like, nobody really liked him for whatever reason. He just was not a popular comic book character or a Robin character. And so DC kind of, like, picked up on this, and I didn't know this till today. I was watching a video about it. DC actually put in one of their comics... should Robin live or should Robin die? You decide. And it was a 900 number.
Oh, wow.
And people called in and killed Robin. Like, they were like, yeah, fuck that dude. Kill him.
Wow.
And who knows how much money DC made off of it. A small fortune, I'm sure. But I had the comic, and I had read it, and I loved it, but I never knew that DC actually let the fans decide.
Dude, can you imagine a point where the movies get interactive now?
I was thinking about that too when I saw that on the video.
Like it'll get like in Infinity War, like it'll get to the part and then it'll stop and it says, "Do you want Hawkeye to die? Yes or no?"
Well, I wasn't thinking that interactive. That's like fucking video game style.
And then there'll be buttons on
but
your
it
thing,
could.
so you'll be like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, right there
yes
on your
or
chair.
no.
On your chair, a yes and a no button.
Yeah, and then it'll tabulate. And okay, Hawkeye dies, and then it just crush or
I
something.
can see it. I could see somebody working on it.
This is
As
like
an idea.
right.
I was thinking more like kind of like the Captain America end credit scene we got.
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine them doing a movie, like, let's say at the end of the Justice League, and there's an end credit scene, and one of the characters comes out and says, "How do you feel about Ben Affleck as Batman?" You know,
Call this number.
go on Facebook now,
right.
and put your vote in for should he play in the next Batman film. Like,
if you have any suggestions,
Right, I could see us reaching that point pretty soon, to be honest. With maybe Batman Beyond. Maybe it's that soon, dude. Who do you want to play Batman? Terry McGinnis. Go on Facebook now and vote. Yeah, I could say. I thought that was really weird too. A 900 number. Think about how many kids got grounded over that shit. What is this bullshit? $100 phone call. I had to vote to kill Robin, Mom. It was so important.
Fuck that
And
little
they did
bitch.
it. Look, Mom. It was worth $100.
My vote mattered.
Right.
You actually just reminded me about something now, so I'm gonna go a little off track here, just to see what your answer is. Just for a second, because you were saying something about Batman Beyond and what you were talking about earlier. It'd be cool to see an older Bruce. Who would you like to see play that older Bruce? Christian Bale or Batfleck? Because you were saying that Christian Bale does play a very good broken, beat up Bruce.
I know. That's a pretty good question, actually. I was just thinking, I totally left Batfleck out of the whole Batman
list.
Yeah. It's because he's just not yet.
Yeah.
It's hard.
I mean, I guess that's fine. We really haven't seen. I think we'll get our real first good look in the Justice League trailer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and when we walk out of that movie,
We should have a pretty good idea of.
you can turn to Jeremy and go, number one, how'd you like the movie? Number two, how is he as Batman? I think I'll know at that point. You know what I mean?
At least we should.
We should. You're right.
Now I know. Granted, there's more. There's going to be some more characters on the screen that are going to have equal time, but this should give us a good indication on the direction Batman is going heading into the Batman.
Right. But back to your question, who would I rather see play that? What is he, like 65-year-old Bruce Wayne?
Like 60, 70.
60 or 70.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't know. I really think Christian Bale had a beat on that character. That a little bit mentally deranged, been doing this too long. I guess my vote would be Bale over. But again,
Jeremy's like George Clooney.
But again, only because I haven't seen enough Batfleck.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
after Justice League, I might change that. I might say, oh fuck, he's gonna make a great old Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. Alright, back to Batman stories.
Yeah, that's all I had for Batman stories. That's like 5 or 6 of the really good ones. There's several other good ones out there.
Mm-hmm.
Batman Hush is a really good story. Drawn by Jim Lee, who's like one of the best Batman artists of all time. Got a really cool artistic design to it. There's a lot of good Batman stories, there really is. You guys have Batman? So you can count movies. I actually put down on my list The Dark Knight is in the list.
Right.
because that story is fantastic. It really is.
No, I was a little torn between my favorite, because I really like the Red Hood story.
Oh, that's a good one, too.
I really like the
Under the Red Hood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that one.
And that is one of my favorite animated Batman movies.
Yeah, it's a great story.
But I didn't think about it until, I think it was right before I got here I started thinking about it. There was a Batman movie, if I'm not mistaken, it was a Batman, one of the Batman Beyond animated movies where he's actually sharing with Terry about the past with the Joker, about what he had done to Dick Grayson, how he had captured Robin and told him, meet me here, goes to get Robin back, and he is strapped to a table.
Yeah, you're talking about A Death in the Family.
Where he is.
It's Jason Todd, though. It's
not
Dick Grayson.
Jason Todd, I'm sorry. But where he gives him a lethal dose of that fucking Joker venom and becomes a tiny Joker. And by the end of the movie, you find out am I mistaken? Doesn't the Joker plant something in him?
Yeah, there's
him
it's a microchip in his skull or something that activates. And it transforms his body, physically transforms his body, where his skin turns white, and he starts laughing maniacally and everything.
So the comic book I was talking about,
my favorite.
A Death in the Family, ends at Jason Todd's death. Batman tries to save him. Basically, Joker kidnaps him, takes him to a warehouse, beats the fuck out of him with a crowbar. It's pretty graphic.
Yeah.
It's pretty graphic. Especially you talking 1990. I mean, before graphic novels and shit. Beats the fuck out of him with a crowbar. I remember it vividly because there was 5 or 6 panels of you just seeing the Joker swinging the crowbar, and you saw his bloody body, and then he ties him to a bomb, and then he gives him some Joker venom or something, and then Under the Red Hood is kind of like the second half of that story.
Yes.
Which they didn't write till years later.
He survives.
Right.
And once he recoups, gets better, starts taking revenge, and tries to get Batman to kill Joker. And gives him an ultimatum at the end. It actually showed a few scenes where Batman had beat the shit out of all these people, and he comes in, gives him his little speech, and then the Red Hood just kills him after they've already been beat the shit. And then at the end, he actually gives him a choice where he either needs to kill the Joker or he needs to kill him from keeping him from killing the Joker. And what he ended up doing was Batman and the Joker is all for this. He is all kinds of excited. He's like, somebody do something, right? And he is just laughing his ass off, having a blast with this. And right as he is, if I'm not mistaken, Batman just stops, turns around, and starts walking away. And as he's walking away, he's starting to pull the trigger at Batman. And once he pulls the trigger, he dodges the bullet, throws a batarang into the barrel of the gun. Gun blows up, fucks up his hand. And then the Joker is just cracking up. He's like, even when all the odds are against you, you still manage to pull a win out your ass. Right? And then that's when Red Hood sits there and goes, no, fuck you, plan B. I have a fucking bomb in here. By the way, I just started the timer.
He kills himself.
And then, no, he starts the timer, and at that point, Red Hood just gives up. Joker's still fucking strapped, and if I'm not mistaken, he's still in, the Joker ends up staying in the building. Batman grabs him and runs Red Hood outside. Dick Grayson, correct?
Jason Todd.
Jason Todd grabs Jason Todd and runs him outside, building explodes and saves him, and kind of helping him out through helping Batman out with the little mental issues he has because he thought he wasn't able to save him before, and thought because he didn't save him from the explosion, he had died. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if I'm right or wrong on this, but I believe Joker's still in the building when it explodes. So...
But the Joker can't die.
Right.
The Joker can never die.
But
he plants chips in people.
This brings up a weird Easter egg, though. The suit in Batman vs. Superman. You haven't seen it. Alright, so there's a few things in that movie that you do go, ooh, there's a few. One of them is in the Batcave. The Batcave's very cool. There's a few moments in the Batcave. But probably the coolest moment is real fucking brief. It was all over the internet. The Robin suit.
The Robin suit with the mark with those
So
the writing on it.
Robin suit.
Yeah, I've seen the Robin suit.
So he walks past it and he kind of turns and he looks at it and has this like reflective moment. And that's all. That's it. They don't focus on the suit or nothing the rest of the movie, and you're kind of like, it's one of those moments where you go back months later and you're like, what was that all about? But it's really weird because you're saying that was a Batman Beyond story.
If I'm not mistaken, that was.
I don't know.
The older Batman telling
Well, I know
Terry
there's a story
about
of Under the Red Hood.
Not Under the Red Hood, but about what had happened.
Him telling
to
the story.
Mm-hmm.
So it is connected to Batman Beyond somehow.
I believe so.
If that's true, then there's already a link in the chain. We're going to do a Batman Beyond story with Ben Affleck. And there's the suit.
Because this
of
was
Jason Todd.
Oh, this was an older Batman.
And I know that's saying they knew this way ahead of time, years ahead of time, that they were going to do him as Batman Beyond. But it's not out of the realm of possibilities, and that's why they threw it in there. Because there's really no reasoning for that suit to be in the movie, other than you look at it and go, oh, that's fucking cool, and then it's over. But
not to mention, it was an older Batman once they... God damn, I keep spacing on his name.
Jason Todd.
Jason Todd. It is an older Batman that we see because at that point he is running around when Jason Todd is starting to transform into the Joker. There's Batman and there's also Batgirl and Robin. There, it's the trio at that point. It's not just Batman and Robin. And the Robin that we did know, Jason Todd, was a painter at that time? He was an older, kind of heavy-set type of guy, and if I'm not mistaken, he was a painter.
It's been so long.
And I mean, you're talking about Jason Todd being in his, like, mid to late 30s, so it's getting to that point to where Batman is getting old as hell.
Gotta be 40 or 50.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, he's telling Terry this story about what had happened with the Joker.
Just weird connection. If that is a Batman Beyond story, that they referenced that. That's a weird connection that the suit was in this movie universe, the Jason Todd suit. I just thought that was a little weird.
Speaking of which, if any of y'all are listening to this podcast, comment anything you may know on Facebook.
If you know anything, if we fucked anything up,
set us straight.
Comment, set us straight. Tell us our Batman shit. Get it right. We're dying to hear from anybody. So yeah, tell us we suck. Whatever. Anything. Tell us we don't suck. Your choice. So yeah, that's the big Batman news. Pretty much is we're gonna have Ben Affleck for years to come. Settle in. Which, like I said, it's kind of a relief in one sense that we're not like, oh god, who's gonna play Batman next? You know, we can go into the Justice League movie and the Batman movie going, okay, he's Batman. You know, and I would say we will have a good depiction of who he is as Batman by the end of Justice League. Especially if I don't know how they're doing this anymore. I mean, Justice League was going to be a two-parter.
It is still going to be a two-parter. I think the second part is coming out either May or June of next year or 2019. Probably 2019, probably. Unless they decide to move it up or whatever.
To switch.
Or push it back because maybe Justice League doesn't do as well.
Still trying to wait and see too.
Yeah.
Do the fans want another one? I think is what they're kind of.
Right. Thanks to Wonder Woman, it's Justice League's got some big shoes to fill right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say Wonder Woman helped its cause though, not hurt it.
No, I'm not saying it hurt it, but as successful as Wonder Woman is, when you've got Wonder Woman and then all this other stuff, when you got the Justice League,
makes me wonder.
It's gotta. Wonder Woman was a great movie, but it's got to blow that out of the water financially.
Yeah,
it's got to make $9 billion.
It makes me wonder, this whole Ben Affleck as Batman for the next 10 years or whatever, would that have happened if Wonder Woman bombed? You know?
Right.
I think that probably helped his cause. He should be giving the dick to Gal Gadot right now. She just made him a fortune. Nate, you got any Batman stories you want to throw out there?
I would say I don't think I have a particular favorite. I love the Arkham Asylum storyline from the game.
Those are good stories.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty much the whole Arkham.
The arc of Arkham.
Arc, I guess you would call it. It's kind of more of a trilogy. It's like 4 games, even though they went 1, 2, and then Origins, where they kind of go to the beginning, and then Arkham Knight. But you know that whole thing.
Yeah.
Where
what I know of the story, I really liked.
You know, Joker gets himself purposely captured so that he can take over Arkham and get his hands on the Bane Venom. You know, that was pretty much the whole thing, and then he becomes Venom Joker or whatever for whatever reason.
Did you know there was a comic book where Batman took the Venom, to experiment?
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Like roids. He took some Batroids.
Batroids.
And it didn't turn out too well. Somebody had to stop him. He went a little nuts.
Well, yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah. Surprise, surprise.
But when you're Batman, you gotta try everything. You gotta experiment.
Right. You can't call yourself the world's greatest detective if you don't at least experiment.
Right.
I'm currently playing the Batman Telltale game series right now, and they just announced a season 2 coming up probably later this year. It probably won't be available on mobile for probably till next year.
What do they release them on?
Well,
PC?
yeah, I think they're going to release them on consoles first where you can download. Maybe they'll release it on mobile at the same time. I don't know, but I think it took a while before that came out. But regardless, very interesting story from what I've played so far. The story so far is that it turns out that Thomas Wayne and Martha Wayne were gunned down in Crime Alley because they were part of. They were basically part of they were part of the mafia. This inner city supergroup, kind of a Gotham Illuminati almost, where they had incarcerated Penguin's mom in Arkham, so Thomas could get the land that the Cobblepots owned. To where he could build Wayne Tower, and so they stole the land. he was in cahoots with Carmine Falcone and I want to say Mayor Solomon Hill, the mayor of Gotham at the time. They were all conspiring to build the city, pretty much.
Right.
And Thomas was having his doubts. He wanted to get out. Somebody got wind of this, hired the guy that ended up killing Thomas and Martha in Crime Alley. And there's this part where Bruce remembers the conversation where Thomas gets in front. It's like, tell Carmine that, we'll get him his money or something like that. And then he makes the connection, and Bruce is trying to find out, while being the financier / campaign manager for Harvey Dent, because Harvey Dent is also running for the mayor of Gotham. He was running against Hill and everything. And then this whole thing comes out, and Harvey's he says, I hate to do this, but I have to distance myself from you because it's not looking real good, blah, 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 and all this stuff. And the good thing about the Telltale games is that the choices you make in the game affect the story. Because there's this one part at the very beginning where there's a big dinner at Wayne Manor where Harvey's, Bruce Wayne, thank you for showing up late as usual or whatever. And you're helping me with my campaign, blah, blah, blah. Carmine Falcone shows up, and he walks in like he fucking owns the place. And then there comes a part where he's like, oh, I think you know who I am, and he puts out his hand. Then you have a choice of whether you want to shake his hand or not shake his hand. And then it shows like people are like looking over, like seeing what you were going to do. And you have to make a choice. And the choice that I make goes like, okay, I'll be civil, I'll shake his hand. Well, of course, that comes back to bite me because, Bruce Wayne's in league with Falcone and all this stuff. So that
screwed yourself.
Right, so then like the news is all over it, and
I was just trying to be polite.
Right. So it's like it's and you were friends with Oswald like all your life, and you were growing up, and now Cobblepot comes back, and now he wants to create anarchy in Gotham, and he's basically telling you, don't get in my way. The Waynes are a part of this, blah, 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 and all so forth. So he's trying to figure this out, and everything. It's a really fascinating storyline.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I do like, and it's kind of been explored before in the comics, I do like the idea of, like, the Waynes are not what we think they are.
Right. They kind of did hint at that in Gotham, too.
Yeah, they did, you're right.
A little bit. With the...
And the movies, I guess, Nolan's version, don't they kind of badmouth the Waynes? Roz does, but it's just at the end when they're on the train, and he say something about your father knew this or that.
I think so.
But what I'm referencing, I guess, in my mind are, I used to read these Grant Morrison stories, comic books that were... I've talked about them before, where Batman dies but doesn't really die. He goes into some other parallel universe or something, and he's lost or whatever. And this is where they show you the history of the Waynes.
Oh, okay.
The Waynes. I don't know why I keep saying Waynes. Not Marlon and not the Black family. No, the Wayne family, and it's the ones where like it's throughout time. He keeps jumping through time. And there's the caveman Batman, and then there's
the Black Knight.
There's the witch trial. There's
Salem witch
trial, and there was one of the Waynes, and it's not Batman. He ends up basically he pops into these settings, and he's playing the part of one of his old
ancestors.
Yeah, his ancestors, and people are addressing him as like Henry Wayne, and he's like, what? Oh, like that's my great uncle or whatever.
Yeah.
And so he just kind of goes along with it. But all throughout those comics, like each story, like one was a kind of detective noir story, and that guy was actually like a devil worshiper or like a Satanist.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah, and they take you down, and there's this one part where they take you in that story, the noir one, where they go to, there's a bat cave. So, like, the idea is that Batman has been played by the Waynes for generations. And it's been whatever, and each comic book series, kind of at the end, where they would tell you, like, why this version of Batman happened, you know, what happened to Henry Wayne, and that made him take. And so there's the one with the Batman Noir where they actually go into the Bat Cave before it was the Bat Cave.
Right.
And there's, like, pentagrams and stuff drawn. Yeah, because he was a devil worshiper.
Devil Man.
Right. He had like red eyes as Batman. But I do like the idea of, like, the Waynes were, because let's face it, they were money hungry. They were what we look at now as, like, the Bush family, you know, power, greed, money.
Trumps.
The Trumps, yes.
That damn white privilege.
Yeah, that we're all born with. I like that idea. I wouldn't mind them exploring that more, kind of in the cinematic universe. But we'll see.
Right.
We'll see what happens. All right, shifting gears. Let's talk a little Star Wars before we end this podcast, because we had some Star Wars news that came out. The news is there's a rewrite for Episode 9. Now, we don't really know what kind of news that is.
Right.
Like Nate was saying, he had heard that that's pretty common at this stage in development. What we know is this. About a year ago, it was kind of released that Rian Johnson was writing episodes 8 and 9, and that Colin Trevorrow
yep.
is directing it and would be putting the finishing touches on episode 9. Now, we're told that some guy that's affiliated with the Harry Potter stories, I have no idea what this guy's name is. He's, from what I saw from Collider videos, they were talking about he's got a lot of touch-up work credits. Like, he comes in, he's one of these guys that comes into movies, kind of like what happened with Rogue One.
Right.
And they bring a guy in and goes, no, this isn't working. Yeah, that works, blah, blah, blah. But as far as, like, his credentials, standalone credentials, I don't know this guy. We know he wrote some Harry Potter story, which I think it's the one that's not yet been turned into a movie. Something about the
after.
Child.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Child or
the Child of Destiny or something. I don't know.
That.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It's not one of the 9 books that's already been put out.
Put out as a movie.
So I don't really know much about this guy. So as far as, like, what does it mean? I don't know. We're trying to
from all indications, it's looking like Rian Johnson made what they're calling as a transplant, which I guess is basically kind of a rough outline of what Episode 9 is, like a rough draft.
Right.
And then they brought in this writer because Trevorrow is also doing the Jurassic World sequel, and I think a spin-off. I want to say I think he's working on 2 Jurassic World projects on top of doing Episode 9. And
they did announce his name way early. I mean, they announced his name during Episode 7. Or right after 7.
Right, Trevorrow?
Yeah, I mean, and he wasn't doing 9 for 3 years, 4 years. So, I mean, that's early to be announcing your director and writer and everything. I don't know, I have a question for you guys regarding the Star Wars, regarding Lucasfilm and what's going on with Star Wars. It seems to me, and I could be way off, because I think I was off about a lot of the Batman stuff, but it seems to me like they are really making this story up as they go. And I know they have hinted at that. Somebody from Lucasfilm did say, like 6 months ago, we're not really going off any set script, which kind of like made us all go, oh, they're not doing any of George's.
Right.
So, I'm not saying that worries me, because I think I loved Rogue One. I did. And Rogue One, from, before you saw it, was like, oh my god, this is sketchy. With all the reshoots, and the way they brought this other guy in, and basically kind of gave, what's his name, the boot, the director, the fuck is his name? Gareth Edwards.
Right.
So they brought somebody in during the reshoots and basically told Gareth Edwards, you just sit over there in the corner right now and we'll work this out. And it turned out wonderful. I loved Rogue One. So I'm not really going, oh, this is the wrong way to be doing it. But what do you guys think? Because Lucas obviously had a general idea of all 9 stories. Or at least 6. At least 6. I'll give him that much.
Well, I think the death of Carrie Fisher, as far as 9 goes, kind of threw a wrench.
Yeah, and this is a good segue into that quote I was talking about. I heard a quote from Carrie Fisher circa 2015, right when 7 was about to come out, or they were making 7, and she said, Carrie Fisher said, 7 is Han's story. 8 will be Luke's story, and 9 is going to be Leia's story. Meaning, it's going to focus on
right.
Not that that's the story, but that they would be the main character focus.
Right.
And so far, that seems pretty accurate.
And that does seem to be...
7 seemed very Han Solo-esque in a lot of ways, except for his death. And minus that big part, but 8 is very much leaning towards a Luke story.
Yep.
And so if that was the case, 2015, then yeah, I would say episode 9 needs a rewrite.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of part of the reason. I think the other reason is that Trevorrow was also
so busy
writing with it. He was also going to co-write with. It was him and somebody else that were co-writing this.
Rian Johnson, right?
Was it? No, it was him and somebody else that were going to write this, because I think they were going off what Rian Johnson had spelled out, and then they were going to then write that.
It wasn't the old dude, was it, from Empire? The guy that helped write the Han Solo story?
I don't think so.
Kirshner?
I don't think so.
Is that the guy?
I'll have to double check a little later. But he was also... Trevorrow was set to co-write and direct this, too.
Right.
But now that he's got these other projects, too, and I read an article that says, bringing in another writer at this stage is not uncommon. It's not unheard of. Mm-hmm. It's just, it takes a little bit of the burden off of Trevorrow so that he can focus on his other projects and directing this one, where he doesn't have to also worry about writing it, too. So in the end, this could really not mean anything.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It's just they're just bringing somebody on to help.
Well, it's kind of like when I heard 6 months ago or whatever they were talking about that they weren't really going off a script. My immediate reaction was like, what? Like, that's crazy. They're just making it up as they go. But that kind of leads me back to my question. Like, maybe that's the better way to do it. Maybe it's harder to take a giant story and figure out, like, how to break it down into 3 movies. You know, maybe that's some of where George went wrong. Now, I'm not saying George went really wrong or anything. I'm a Lucas fan, but what do you guys think? You think it's easier to write an overall synopsis and then tinker with it? Or is it better just to go, you know what? This is 7, and I think we got 8 done, but when we figure out the ending, we'll figure it out.
I think it's really up to. I think it differs from director to director.
Yeah.
There may be some directors that are more with the loose style of directing, where they can basically ad-lib directing, where as opposed to a more, point A to point B to point C type of acting or directing.
I think you're right. I think a lot of it is the director's personal preference or how his style, the way that he makes movies.
Yeah, you can kind of see Spielberg being like an A to B to C, kind of a strict.
And I think as Star Wars fans, we get a little caught up maybe in the idea of like destiny and fate, and we want to. And I guess I'm speaking for myself, but maybe it applies to you guys too. That we kind of want to know that there was a predestined story of the Skywalkers, and like, I don't know, adds to the lore of the Star Wars, maybe, of how Star Wars kind of just lets the Force guide its way.
Right.
And I guess we've always been told as kids, George Lucas wrote 9 episodes, and they're just putting them out, throughout the years. Well, we know for sure these are not George Lucas's episodes.
Right.
And I guess maybe we'll have a better. It maybe be easier to answer that question that I just posed after we see 8.
Right.
If 8 is fantastic and we know that just came out of the brain of one guy, and it wasn't like, oh, it has to match up with this, and it's going to have to match up with 9, and it has to coincide with all the other episodes. I'm sure it does, but it came from one guy's brain mostly, it seems, Rian Johnson. And so far, I mean, you've noticed something? All the Star Wars films have had troubles, except 8. Even, 7 you could say, well, remember in the beginning, the original cast didn't want to do it?
Right.
And they had to bait them in, kind of.
Right, and that they were only going to do episode 7, that was all they're going to do, and then episode 8 and 9 was just going to be about the new quote-unquote generation.
Yeah. So
but
it's like
Mark Hamill's in 8.
Yep.
It remains to be seen. Could be in 9. Leia, we know, is in 8. And as far as we know, was supposed to be heavily in 9, too.
Right.
Harrison Ford was... Oh, wait, sorry. Never mind.
But he's still in the cast.
Right.
In 8, he is. He's in the cast. So we're going to see him somehow. So, yeah, every fucking of these new movies have had serious troubles, quote-unquote. Except 8 has been, like, golden. Nobody said shit bad about 8. Like, everybody's like, oh my gosh, it's so good. Rian Johnson knows what he's doing. And we've had, like, no talk about reshoots, no rewrites. All the actors are like, oh, it's fantastic what he did. Almost scares me a little bit.
Right.
Because all the other movies have been good so far. And they've had troubles. Or at least what we consider troubles.
Right.
This could just be average movie-making business to the powers that be. And to us, it's a crisis. So that was, I guess, maybe where we'll end things. Anybody jump in here anytime you guys want, but this is the question I was going to pose to you guys. How do they end this shit? How should they end it? And I know that's one we probably needed a week to think about. But I started thinking about that. Like, it feels like they really are trying to wrap it up. But if you close the door too tightly, is that a bad idea? You own this franchise now. They're making a Star Wars land at Disney World. We know they're doing at least one more spin-off. At least. And we assume, one hopes, it's Obi-Wan. They've talked that fucking Obi-Wan movie up so much. We know they're going to do at least one more. And why would you stop? Each movie's making $1 billion. Why would you stop doing that?
Right.
So, but it brings this interesting question, I think, of like, you don't want to watch 3 fucking movies, 7, 8, and 9, and come to the end of 9 and be like, they just tie it up real quick. And you're just like, wow, I invested the past 9 years of my life into that, and they ended it that way. But then again, you don't want them to wrap it up too tightly to where you're like, oh, that's the end of the Skywalkers. Oh, you mean we can't tell another Skywalker story ever now? Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
The question it poses, especially with Carrie Fisher dying, that's another wrench in the whole system, I think.
Well, according to John Boyega, in a recent interview, and it's kind of a minor spoiler, but not having to do with the main plot.
Spoiler.
Right.
3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
Give you time.
But he was talking about the scenes that he shot with Carrie Fisher, and that he was in. He was going to be in 8 scenes in episode 8 with Carrie Fisher, and then he went to brag, or not brag, but he went to go on to say that they did a phenomenal job giving Leia a send-off, basically saying that they're not killing her in episode 8. They're gonna kind of, I think they're giving her the Paul Walker treatment, where they're gonna have her go off into the sunset, go off into some distant planet or something, and just kind of
Disappear.
be one with the universe for eternity, where they're just going to have her off, and then where it'll keep her alive in the Star Wars universe and not kill her character off. We'll see exactly how they do that once episode 8 comes out.
Mm-hmm.
But John Boyega,
But they're hinting at not killing her.
yeah, but it sounded like they're not killing her off in this.
How do you feel about that? I don't know. How do you feel about the Skywalkers dying? Let's say Rey's not a Skywalker. Let's say there's only Luke and Leia left, and Finn's not a Skywalker. He still could be. Could be. Blasphemy, but he could be. So let's just say at this
secret affair.
Right. Let's just say at this moment that it is Luke and Leia. And do you want to see the Skywalkers? The end of the Skywalker story?
You know what? That's rough.
I know, man. I'm sorry about that.
That is
too.
kind of rough, because I mean, if they didn't kill off Han, they could have done another
3 more.
3 more with Anakin Solo, with that storyline, and with I think Luke had a kid too.
Mm-hmm. Ben. His name was Ben.
Was it Ben Skywalker?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and kind of
obviously they would have had to rename him, but
right, but you know, kind of with the right. I think we're getting into what the extended universe or Legends, whatever the hell they're calling it now.
Right.
You know, there was that whole thing, you know, that they could have done.
I blame Harrison Ford, really, because I think he was the one that was saying... He
didn't want to.
Yeah, he was the one who was resisting doing these movies the most. And I almost think that maybe that Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher had to kind of talk him into it, maybe. But then I think once he started doing 7, he looked like he enjoyed it. He really did.
After he broke his foot.
Yeah.
Remember, because
he's very accident prone.
There was that report early on when they were filming episode 7. He broke his foot.
That's right, and he crashed. It was when he crashed the plane.
Was it when he crashed the plane?
Yeah, he broke a rib and his foot or something like that.
Oh, I thought he broke it on set or something.
Or maybe he did. I don't know. But
I think it was that, and then
he crashed the
plane. It was just like,
but let's say he was like, yeah, fuck it, let's do it. And they have no idea where they're going after 9. If Carrie Fisher dies, which she dies.
She did.
Would Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford continue to make more, you think? If they not killed Han off, if Harrison Ford wasn't like, I'll do 1, but you kill me. Because I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
Yeah, that's kind of...
I'll do one more, but you're killing my character because I'm not coming back.
I'm not going to do this anymore.
I don't know. It's interesting. I haven't really thought about the end. I've been so focused on 8 coming.
Right.
I haven't really thought about how they're going to end this, but it's a really big question mark. It's very important.
I don't think they need to necessarily jump into a new trilogy, a new Skywalker trilogy, or new whatever trilogy, whatever they want to call it. Because there's plenty of other stories out there.
I know.
And the one that comes to mind is Revan.
Yeah.
Or
just the Old Republic.
Right? They don't have to go forward into the trilogy. They could go back.
There's a lot.
I guess maybe my question is really hinging upon: do you think that this is the end of the future? You know, do you think they're
of this current Star Wars?
I think somehow they will leave a crack open, and I think that's probably Rey or Kylo. I think one of those two characters, I think they'll leave it open somehow, loosely, barely open. The door, let's say, if you need a visual, the door will be cracked at the end of this episode 9. So they can go, well, hey, we want to do 1 more or 3 more about that character. I think they'd be stupid if they just ended it. Mm-hmm. But if they have all eyes on going backwards and doing spin-offs, and Mark Hamill's like, well, Carrie's dead, Harrison won't do another one, so this is it for me.
That could be the case too.
Then that's scary.
It really is, because then we're going to be getting into uncharted waters. Although Rogue One proved that you can have a kick-ass movie without really having any of the original characters.
But where Rogue One varies very differently from this is it already had an ending.
Yeah.
You knew where it was going.
They already knew where it was going.
Pretty much, we knew the ending, which was the beginning.
Which,
this has no... I guess my apprehension comes from the ending. Like, this is 9 films of a build-up. It really is. I mean, I know they all have their own feel, but essentially, the story arc is 9 films long, where you're coming to this, like, crossroad. Because it doesn't look like the other characters are coming back after 9. It doesn't. I would be really surprised if Mark Hamill shows up for episode 10. That would blow my mind. To see him in episode 9, I would be happy and elated.
Right.
If he's like, yeah, I'm going to do 10 and maybe even 11 and 12, I would be like, wow, that surprised me. That would be shocking. So I guess my apprehension comes from, like, how the fuck do you end this epic saga but yet leave it open still?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's almost impossible, isn't it? It's almost kind of like you have to make a decision.
Right. Well,
open,
it's gonna be up to the actors.
Just like they did episode 6. They're gonna have Kylo pick up Snoke and throw him down this big ass trench.
Well, I hope it's not identical.
And then
I love my grandfather so much. Let's reenact this.
Why does this seem familiar?
With episode 7, it might as well have been New Hope 2.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you think about 6, how 6 ended, 6 left the door wide open.
Mm-hmm.
Wide open.
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't feel that
that's
way.
when you found out...
This doesn't feel like the door is going to be wide open.
Well, that's when you found out, hey, Leia is also Force sensitive.
Right, and we all
assumed
she was going to be a Jedi someday.
That's what we assumed.
I mean, circa 1983, everybody thought, she's going to be a Jedi. I'm going to see Leia be a Jedi someday.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as a kid, I had that thought, even maybe not on screen, as a comic book character or something. And that Luke would become the new Yoda.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and none of that really happened. I mean, we'll see what Luke turned into. But it's kind of fucked up that Leia never became a Jedi. That's a little fucked up.
What's your prediction?
Of how it's going to end?
For episode 8 as far as Luke.
I think he's going to die. That's my personal belief is I think he's going to die. I hope not. but I think he will.
If he dies in episode 8, then that pretty much should answer the question of what the future holds. Because if he's dead, Han's dead.
You're right.
Leia is dead in real life.
You're right. That's a very important. You're right. If they kill him off in 8, that's pretty much saying the door is closed after 9.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because you can't have an episode 10 where
unless they introduce his child in this character, in this movie. If they introduce his child, you can't have you're not going to have the original characters, but the lineage lives on.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. Yeah, they could do that.
I know that they did.
And it would make more sense for him to have a daughter if they want to carry it on.
Right.
I don't know, man. I just, for the first time, it was weird. Today was the first time I've thought about the end. Like, how are they going to do that?
Well,
I mean, basically, you're trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. It almost seems impossible. You don't really want to close that future because it's a $1 billion franchise.
Right.
Even if you do have countless other stories you can tell, there's people out there that are true Blue Skywalker fans that want to see what happens to the family lineage. And I think they know that. I think they see the pot at the end of the rainbow and go, "Oh, we can't just close the door. There's money to be made."
Money.
Right. And I think that's about it, guys. We did 2.5 hours of bullshit. Batman and Star Wars. I could go on forever.
Right.
He threw probably about 15 minutes of Spider-Man in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit. A little Spidey.
Little
it's bullshit.
superhero identity rant.
It's bullshit that they all give their identity. They're all a bunch of hoes.
All right, stop it, Ralph. Stop it, Ralph.
And next week we'll hear Ralph's version of all the subjects we just talked about.
I can see it now. Just
you did
it.
2 hours on Batman? That's right, biatch, we did. And you didn't get to say
you weren't
shit.
here.
So we do want to mention before we end the podcast, Chris, go ahead. It's your forte.
Oh, okay. Apparently I'm doing this.
We're going to do another contest, but based upon...
for all the Star Wars fans out there, we got all kinds of little goodies. If you want to take a look at them, go ahead and check out Facebook for Nerd Eye Council. We'll have a little contest going on here soon for a free giveaway, and go ahead and check it out. We got a lot of good stuff out there for you.
He was given a pot of gold by somebody, a treasure trove of old Star Wars toys and comic books.
Oh yeah.
Is it all Star Wars? It's other stuff too?
It's all Star Wars. For those of you that are into the real vintage Star Wars knickknacks, we got the micro machines for you collectors out there.
There is a plastic man Luke Skywalker, a stretchy Luke Skywalker that looks vintage as fuck. There's a really cool Elite series, but Chris is keeping that one.
Yeah,
that's keeper.
That's mine.
But we're gonna do the giveaway here in the next couple of weeks, and one of those or some of those toys, not sure yet. We haven't decided. Chris hasn't decided yet. Are going to be the giveaway prize. And he's even talking about putting them on Facebook for sale, right?
Yes.
So, be on the lookout for that on Facebook. As always, guys, we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, and we threw a little bit of a mislead at you. We are still on Podbean. Yeah, we just can't leave it alone.
Podbean lives on.
So you can find us on Podbean, leave comments and likes and whatnot on Podbean also if you don't find us on YouTube or Facebook. We do want to say thank you to the people out there that I saw this week, gave us some likes on Facebook. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We love you guys. Any support helps. We appreciate it very much. And on that note, next week is really up in the air.
Yeah, next week is...
Give us some information on what you want us to talk about.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
You tell us what you'd like to hear. If you're tired of hearing about Batman and Star Wars, too fucking bad. But you can tell us anyway. No, seriously. We want your input, and if there's shit out there we're not talking about, if we need to get into the Doctor Who universe because that's what you want to hear about, so be it. Tell us.
I like telephone booths.
I would be the resident Doctor Who expert, I guess, here.
I like chicks taking over superhero parts.
All right.
I don't know if Doctor Who is a superhero necessarily, but he's loosely superhero.
Yeah.
He's
super smart.
He's definitely Comic-Con material.
Yeah, we may look to expand. Like I said, we get to Doctor Who, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super.
Now you're getting into my territory.
Oh yeah, a lot of
conspiracies. We've been talking about doing conspiracy talk for a long time now, and in one of these days we're just gonna hit play and we're gonna throw it up there. Whatever conspiracies we want to talk about. Because between
how about actually, you know what, that brings up a good point. If we have the whole gang together, which as far as we know we should, we'll have to get in contact with Wreck-It.
Those who are missing.
Yes.
Wreck-It Wow.
And if he's on board, I think next week we will do our first conspiracy theory episode.
I'm cool with that.
I think we will start with that. What we're going to be talking about, we may just cover conspiracy theories in general.
Right. Who knows?
Just kind of.
I can tell you for sure the Mandela effect will come up.
Oh, I'm sure.
It will come up.
I'm sure.
But yeah, we'll do our first conspiracy talk next week, and if you guys really hate the idea of that, just tell us. Comment, say something. We'll probably do it anyways, but at least we'll know, where you guys stand.
Right. Send us some comments on Facebook. Give us some ideas about some future stuff that that you'd want to hear. We'll do our research.
And I promise you guys, the segments are coming. We're even working on theme songs for the segments.
Right. Tentatively, we will debut next week with everybody. So until we will see you guys next week.
Same bad time,
same bad channel.
Peace.